Welcome to Books Arena, where stories meet wisdom, and where each word has the power to shape who we become. Today, we explore a powerful idea, one that quietly fuels some of the greatest achievements in human history. It is not genius. It is not talent. It is something far more persistent, and often more invisible. It is grit. Let us begin with the scene. Imagine two young boys standing at the edge of a dusty football field in a small town. One is fast, the kind of child coaches point to and say, "Natural athlete." The other one, smaller, slower, often ignored, runs the drills anyway. He shows up early, stays late, and keeps showing up even when no one else does. Months pass. Then years. One day, that second boy, the one no one believed in, is the one leading the team, not because he got lucky, but because he refused to quit. That is grit. We often grow up hearing that talent is everything. That some people are just born smarter, stronger, or more gifted. But when you look closely at the lives of those who rise to the top, from Olympic athletes to Nobel Prize winners, from master chefs to war heroes, a different pattern appears. Yes, many have talent. But what truly separates them is not what they were born with. It is how deeply they care, how long they are willing to work, and how resilient they are when things fall apart. Grit is passion and perseverance for long-term goals. It is the slow burn of purpose that keeps someone going after the applause has faded. And it is not a trait you are either born with or not. Grit can be built. It can be trained like a muscle. It can be taught, nurtured, and earned, and that makes it available to every one of us. Angela Duckworth, the psychologist who brought grit into the spotlight, did not just study success from the sidelines. She went into classrooms, training camps, boardrooms, and research labs, hunting for an answer to one of the most important questions of our lives: what really drives success? The answer, she discovered, was not talent. It was effort. And not just a little effort here and there, but effort sustained over years, often in silence, often without praise. Consider a West Point cadet, exhausted, mentally shattered, wondering if he has what it takes to endure the brutal first summer called Beast Barracks. Many cadets leave. The ones who stay are not necessarily the strongest or fastest. They are the ones who refuse to give up day after day. That is grit. Or picture a writer who gets rejected 39 times before finally seeing her novel in print. Or a scientist who works a decade on a theory that keeps failing until it finally does not. Or a young woman who teaches math in a tough inner-city school and refuses to walk away, even when her students push back. These people share something: not talent alone, but the will to keep going. And here is what is remarkable: grit is not reserved for the elite. It belongs to every person who has ever had a dream and decided to chase it. It is in the college dropout who starts again at 35. It is in the teenager who studies quietly at night after working all day. It is in the mother who builds a business from her kitchen table, one sale at a time. In the world we live in today, with distractions, short attention spans, and instant gratification, grit is a rebellion. It says, "I will not give up when it gets hard. I will not stop just because I am not the best yet. I will stay in the game." This journey through the idea of grit is not just about understanding success. It is about understanding ourselves. What we are capable of. What it means to commit. What it means to care so deeply about something that we are willing to endure boredom, failure, and even pain, just to get a little better every day. Over the next 7 chapters, we are going to walk through stories, real ones, of people who chose grit over glamour, persistence over perfection, and long-term purpose over short-term praise. These are not fairy tales. They are the hidden truths behind success that rarely make headlines but always shape legacies. So wherever you are listening, whether you are walking, commuting, working out, or lying still with your eyes closed, let the story stay with you. Because grit is not about doing more. It is about holding on when everyone else has let go. It is about falling in love with the process, not just the result. Welcome again to Books Arena. This is the story of grit, and it just might change how you define success, failure, and everything in between. Part 1: The Power of Passion and Perseverance. There is a moment in every journey when the lights dim, the crowd thins out, and the excitement wears off. That is the moment that separates those who simply start something from those who finish. That moment is where grit begins. Let me take you into the life of a young man named Will. He was not the brightest student in school, not the most athletic, and certainly not the one anyone expected to go far. But there was something quietly different about Will. When he set his eyes on something, he locked in. while others got bored, distracted, or discouraged, Will kept going. He failed more often than he succeeded. But each failure taught him something. And slowly, almost invisibly, he improved. Years later, that same young man became a surgeon. Not because he had an extraordinary IQ, but because he refused to quit when things got hard. He studied longer, practiced more, and accepted every small challenge as a piece of something bigger. That is the power of passion tied to perseverance, the heartbeat of grit. Most people believe that success is about talent, the idea that some people are just born to do great things. But research shows something radically different. Talent counts, yes, but effort counts twice. Passion fuels the direction, and perseverance ensures the destination is reached. Think about it this way: talent might get you started, but grit is what gets you to the finish line. Take a look at athletes. Not the ones who dazzle on highlight reels, but the ones who train in silence for years. Picture a figure skater practicing the same jump hundreds of times, falling again and again until the movement becomes second nature. Or a runner waking up at 4 in the morning to log miles while the world sleeps. These are not stories of luck or genius. These are stories of people who made a promise to themselves and honored it through repetition, sweat, and sacrifice. There is a story about a pottery class that reveals something powerful. The teacher split the class in two groups. One group was told, "You will be graded based on the quantity of pots you make, the more, the better." The other group was told, "You will be graded on a single, perfect pot." At the end of the term, something interesting happened. The best pots, the most refined, beautiful ones, came not from the group aiming for perfection, but from the group focused on quantity. They made mistakes, yes, but in the process of doing and redoing, they improved. That is grit in action, choosing progress over perfection. Angela Duckworth found this pattern everywhere. In schools, the most successful students were not always the smartest. They were the ones who stayed after class, asked for help, and kept revising their work. In business, it was not always the most charismatic leader who built something great, but the one who could show up day after day through setbacks and doubt. Grit, it turns out, is less about intensity and more about consistency. Passion does not mean wild enthusiasm every single day. It is not loud. In fact, real passion is often quiet. It is the kind of deep interest that keeps you coming back, even when no one is watching. It is what makes someone reread the same page until it makes sense, or revisit a failed project until it takes shape. Perseverance, on the other hand, is what happens when excitement fades and discipline takes over. It is what makes someone lace up their shoes even when the motivation is gone. It is sticking to your values and goals long after the mood has passed. And grit is not something people are born with. It is something that can be cultivated. Think about a child learning to ride a bicycle. At first, every fall feels like failure. But with a few encouraging words and a little more practice, that same child begins to glide. What if we approached every difficult thing in life like that, with patience, repetition, and belief? In a world that celebrates shortcuts and overnight success, grit tells a different story. It says that real success is slow. It says that greatness is not about extraordinary moments, but about ordinary actions repeated with purpose. It says that the grind matters. There was once a teacher who kept a note on her desk that read, "I am not here to be easy. I am here to help you grow." Her students struggled. Many cried. But over time, they transformed. Not because she went easy on them, but because she believed in their potential to push through hard things. That is the kind of belief grit requires, not only in others but in ourselves. So, if you have ever felt like giving up because you are not the most talented in the room, remember this: talent may open the door, but grit walks you through it. Passion sets your aim. Perseverance carries you forward. And together, they create a quiet, powerful force that can change your life. This is the heart of grit, not glamorous, not instant, but deeply human. It is not about being the best right now. It is about being better tomorrow than you were yesterday. And that kind of progress is always within your reach. Part 2, Talent is overrated. There is something almost dangerous about the word talent. It whispers a seductive idea that some people are just born special. That greatness is inherited, not earned. That your place in life has already been decided by some genetic lottery. But reality, when we look closer, tells a very different story. Let me introduce you to Jason. He was known as the genius in school, the one who solved math problems in seconds and barely needed to study. Teachers praised him. Friends envied him. For a while, he rode on that wave of raw ability. But something happened as the years passed. The problems got harder. The expectations rose. And slowly, Jason stopped trying. He had always been told he was gifted, so when he failed, it felt like the end of the story, as if a mistake meant he was not who everyone believed he was. So he stopped pushing. He became afraid to struggle. Now let me tell you about Megan. Megan was never top of the class. She was quiet, often overlooked. But she had one unusual habit: she worked. While others coasted, Megan stayed up an hour later. When she failed a test, she reviewed every question until she understood it completely. No one called her a genius. But a decade later, Megan was leading a research lab at a top university. Not because she was born smarter, but because she never stopped growing. The difference between Jason and Megan? Grit. We like to celebrate talent because it is easy to spot. A 10-year-old who can play Beethoven is impressive. A student who never studies and still scores high feels almost magical. But the truth is, talent without effort is potential never realized. And effort, multiplied over time, beats natural ability more often than not. Angela Duckworth tells the story of working at a school where students from disadvantaged backgrounds were trying to earn scholarships. Some were quick learners. Others struggled. But the ones who ultimately succeeded were not the ones who understood everything right away. They were the ones who refused to let difficulty defeat them. They kept showing up, even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. In fact, studies have shown that our obsession with talent can actually harm us. When children are praised only for being smart, they become afraid of failure. They start avoiding challenges, because messing up threatens their identity. But when children are praised for effort, for trying, for improving, they build resilience. They begin to see struggle as part of the process. Think of the world's greatest musicians. Sure, many had early signs of skill. But not one became extraordinary without relentless practice. The same is true for athletes. Michael Jordan was famously cut from his high school basketball team. He could have walked away. Instead, he practiced harder. That pain became fuel. That setback became a setup for his rise. Even in fields like art, where we tend to romanticize the gifted painter or prodigy, the truth is that mastery comes from work. Pablo Picasso created over 13,000 paintings. Many are forgotten. But he understood that genius is not a moment, it is a commitment. The idea that talent alone is enough is not only misleading, it is dangerous. It convinces people to stop before they have even started. It creates a false ceiling over their heads. But when you strip that illusion away, something beautiful is revealed: growth is possible. Change is real. And anyone, with enough effort and direction, can do remarkable things. Angela Duckworth offers a simple formula. Talent times effort equals skill. Skill times effort equals achievement. Notice something important here: effort shows up twice. It is the bridge between who you are and who you could become. Take the case of a young woman training for the National Spelling Bee. Thousands compete, but only a few make it to the finals. And when researchers studied what set them apart, it was not IQ. It was hours and hours of deliberate practice. It was a schedule most adults could not keep. It was saying no to distraction and yes to focus, again and again. That is not glamorous. That is grit. Some people will always have a head start. But in the long race, the one that lasts years or decades, it is not the sprinter who wins. It is the one who can keep moving forward without applause. The one who falls and gets up. Again. And again. When we stop worshiping talent and start honoring perseverance, we free ourselves. We stop measuring ourselves by where we began and start focusing on where we are going. And that shift changes everything. Because the truth is, grit is more democratic than talent. It does not care where you were born, what school you went to, or whether you impressed anyone at age 10. Grit is built, not bestowed. So if you have ever looked at someone and thought, I could never do that, I am just not that talented, I want you to pause. Reconsider. You may not be able to match someone's natural starting point. But you can choose your level of effort. You can choose how long you stay in the game. And more often than not, the person who chooses to keep going, not the one who started ahead, is the one who wins in the end. Part 3, Growing Grit from the Inside Out. Grit is not lightning in a bottle. It does not strike out of nowhere or belong to a lucky few. It grows slowly, intentionally from the inside out. And like anything that grows, it begins with a seed, interest. Picture a young boy named Arjun who stumbled into a chess club one rainy afternoon. He was not particularly good at the game, but something about it captured his attention. The quiet focus. The endless patterns. The challenge of thinking several moves ahead. He kept coming back. Day after day. Not because anyone told him to, but because it fascinated him. That spark, that quiet tug of curiosity is where grit begins. Passion does not arrive fully formed. It is not a lightning bolt of purpose that strikes at age 10. Most of the time, it emerges slowly, through exposure, exploration, and trial and error. People who seem deeply passionate about their work almost always went through a long period of wandering and experimenting before they found what truly mattered to them. And that is the first building block of grit, interest. Without interest, no amount of discipline or effort can be sustained. You need to care about what you are doing, not necessarily in a dramatic way, but enough to keep coming back even when no one else does. But interest alone is not enough. The second layer is practice, not just repetition, but deliberate practice. The kind that makes you uncomfortable. The kind where you stretch your limits and aim to get better, not just stay busy. This is where perseverance meets direction. Think of a violinist practicing the same 4 measures of a song for hours until each note sings with precision. Or a coder rewriting the same block of code over and over until it runs clean. They are not simply putting in time. They are targeting weakness and chasing improvement. That kind of practice is not always fun. In fact, it is often frustrating. But those who grow their grit from the inside learn to embrace that frustration. They understand that discomfort is not a signal to quit, it is a sign of growth. The third layer is purpose. At some point, effort alone becomes tiring if it feels empty. But when you begin to connect your effort to something larger, to helping others, solving problems, making a difference, it changes everything. You are no longer just grinding for yourself. You are part of something bigger. Take, for example, a nurse who works 12-hour shifts, sometimes through the night. She faces exhaustion, emotional strain, and constant challenges. But she keeps going, not because every moment is enjoyable, but because she believes in her work. Her effort serves a purpose beyond herself. That belief gives her stamina. That is purpose in action. And finally, there is hope, the quiet belief that what you are doing will eventually lead somewhere better. Hope is not blind optimism. It is the determination to rise after setbacks, to find meaning in difficulty, and to keep moving forward even when results are not immediate. Angela Duckworth tells the story of interviewing a teacher who had worked in one of the toughest school districts in the country. Year after year, she poured her energy into students who were behind, uninterested, or angry. Many days were filled with disappointment. But she never gave up, because she believed fiercely that her work mattered. That kind of belief is not naive. It is courageous. It is gritty. When we put these pieces together, interest, deliberate practice, purpose, and hope, we see the full picture of grit growing from within. Not all at once, not in a perfect sequence, but layer by layer, over time. And this growth is deeply personal. No one can hand you grit. You have to build it yourself. It begins the moment you decide to stay with something just a little longer than you feel like. The moment you resist the easy path and choose the one with resistance, not because it is hard, but because it matters. There was a college student who wanted to become a doctor. She was not from a privileged background. She did not have tutors or a roadmap. But she had a strong interest in biology, a steady study routine, and a deep belief that one day she could help others in need. Every semester brought new obstacles: failed exams, financial stress, imposter syndrome. But she kept going. She adjusted, adapted, and kept practicing. Today, she is in her 3rd year of residency. Not because she was the smartest, but because she grew her grit from the inside out. We live in a world that often glorifies talent and overnight success, but we overlook the slow, patient development of character, the quiet courage to keep going when it would be easier to stop. You do not have to feel passion every day. You do not have to love the process every second. But if you can find something you care about, and you are willing to show up even when it is hard, and you believe even just a little that your effort will pay off, you are building grit. And that inner strength, once developed, becomes a lifelong companion. It becomes the voice that says, "You have done hard things before, you can do this too." It becomes the anchor that keeps you grounded when everything else is uncertain. So when you think about what it takes to grow grit, do not look outward. Look inward. Ask yourself, what draws me in? What am I willing to work for? What could I keep doing even if no one noticed? Because in those quiet answers lies something powerful, the seed of grit, already planted, waiting to grow. Part 4, Growing Grit from the Outside In. There is a saying that it takes a village to raise a child. But perhaps it also takes a village to build grit, not just in children, but in all of us. While grit grows from within, its roots are strengthened by the world around us. Environments, relationships, expectations, these are the silent sculptors of our perseverance. Let us begin with the story of a high school track coach named Mrs. Flores. She was not known for being soft. Her athletes often described her as intense, even intimidating. Practices under her were long, demanding, and sometimes unforgiving. But every athlete who trained under her remembered her with respect and gratitude. She expected more from them than they thought they had to give. And by rising to meet those expectations, they discovered a toughness within themselves they never knew existed. This is what growing grit from the outside in looks like. It is when the people around us, mentors, parents, teachers, even peers, create a culture that values effort, resilience, and long-term commitment. It is the external reinforcement that reminds us we can do hard things, and that we should. Angela Duckworth, in her research, found that gritty individuals often came from environments where excellence was expected, but not demanded without care. The key was what she called authoritative support. High standards paired with high levels of encouragement. It is a balance, pushing someone toward their best while standing beside them when they struggle. Take the story of a boy named Elijah. He grew up in a tough neighborhood, where dropping out of school was more common than finishing. But one teacher changed his path. She refused to lower the bar for him, even when he begged for leniency. Instead, she met him after school, gave him extra assignments, and told him over and over, "You are capable of more." He ended up graduating at the top of his class. What changed? Not just his mindset, his environment. Families, too, play a powerful role in shaping grit. In homes where effort is praised, where mistakes are treated as part of learning, and where consistency is valued over immediate success, children learn to persist. Not because they are forced, but because they absorb the belief that growth is always possible. This is not about being strict for the sake of discipline. It is about creating a culture of purposeful challenge. A household where a parent says, "We finish what we start," or "We do not give up just because it is hard." These messages, repeated over time, build an internal narrative that stays for life. Even in the workplace, grit can be cultivated from the outside in. Leaders who model perseverance, who share their own setbacks, and who reward effort rather than just results, they create teams that endure. They build cultures where people are not afraid to try, fail, and try again. One powerful example comes from the military. At West Point, a place known for its mental and physical rigor, researchers found that cadets who graduated did not just possess inner grit. They were also surrounded by peers and mentors who reinforced grit-related values: teamwork, resilience, honor. The community around them helped carry them through. This is important, because grit does not thrive in isolation. Even the most driven person can falter if their environment discourages effort or punishes failure. On the other hand, someone who might be uncertain of their abilities can blossom in a setting that celebrates determination and supports learning curves. There is a school in California that changed the way it graded students. Instead of just giving a failing grade, they began writing "not yet." That small change sent a different message: you are not there now, but you can get there. That simple shift in language from final judgment to open possibility gave students permission to grow. It taught them grit without ever saying the word. Think about your own life. Who believed in you before you believed in yourself? Who challenged you to do better without tearing you down? These are the architects of your perseverance. And it works the other way, too. We can become that person for someone else. A coach who teaches not just skills but mindset. A friend who says, "Keep going, I see something in you." A parent who listens patiently, but still holds the line. Grit, when nurtured in community, becomes contagious. Angela Duckworth describes this shared environment as a culture of grittiness. These are places: schools, homes, workplaces where people value effort over shortcuts, process over perfection, long-term goals over quick wins. In these places, grit becomes not just an individual trait, but a shared standard. One final story. A young dancer trained at a studio known for its intense instructors. She cried after nearly every rehearsal. But she returned each time. Not because it was easy, but because everyone around her was chasing excellence. She felt like part of something that demanded her best. And slowly, that standard became her own. Years later, she performed on the world's biggest stages. And when asked what made her stand out, she said, "I never had the most talent. I just came from a place where quitting was not normal." That is the power of outside influence. It shapes what we believe is possible. It gives us language for struggle, and a framework for commitment. So if you want to grow grit in yourself, in your children, in your team, look around. Create the space where effort is honored, setbacks are embraced, and standards remain high. Be the coach, the teacher, the parent, the peer who refuses to let someone give up too early. Because grit may begin inside, but it grows strong when it is fed from the outside. Part 5, Passion is discovered, not followed. There is a phrase that echoes through graduation speeches, Instagram captions, and motivational posters: follow your passion. It sounds beautiful, inspiring. But it can also be deeply misleading. Because passion is not something you simply follow like a trail laid out for you. It is not a lightning bolt that strikes one day, revealing your destiny. In truth, passion is something you discover. You stumble into it. You grow into it. And often, you create it with time, patience, and experience. Let us begin with a young woman named Sophia. At age 20, she felt lost. She had tried switching majors 3 times: biology, then journalism, then art history. Each time, she hoped she had found her thing. But each time, she eventually lost interest. She envied people who seemed to know exactly what they wanted. One night, while volunteering at a children's hospital for extra credit, she helped organize a small music therapy session. It was nothing special, just guitars, soft songs, a few patients in wheelchairs. But something shifted in her. The experience did not give her a clear career path. But it gave her curiosity. That curiosity led to research. Research led to internships. And slowly, passion began to grow, not through a single moment of clarity, but through small acts of exploration. That is how passion actually works. Angela Duckworth discovered that people who end up deeply passionate about their work almost never start out with a grand vision. They begin with interest, a mild spark. Then they experiment. They get their hands dirty. They try, fail, adjust. And over time, that interest deepens into passion. The myth of follow your passion suggests that passion is fixed. That you must find the perfect fit and stick to it forever. But real passion evolves. It matures. It is shaped by experience, struggle, success, and even boredom. Think about chefs. Most do not wake up one day knowing they want to run a kitchen. They start by enjoying food. Then they experiment with recipes. Then they endure long nights in hot kitchens, chopping onions and washing dishes. Somewhere along that messy journey, love for the craft develops. Passion does not come first, effort does. Or consider writers. The ones who stick with writing do not write because they are always inspired. They write because something in them feels incomplete if they do not. Many days, it feels like work, frustrating, slow, even dull. But through that effort, a deeper connection forms. And that connection, not a flash of inspiration, is what we call passion. So why is this idea important? Because when people expect passion to appear fully formed, they get discouraged when it does not. They feel broken. They quit too soon. They assume that if something does not feel thrilling every moment, it must not be their passion. But that is not how any long-term commitment works. Not in careers. Not in relationships. Not even in hobbies. Angela Duckworth points out that gritty people often began their journey in uncertainty. But what separated them from others was this: they gave themselves time to explore and permission to stick with something long enough for passion to grow. That means we need to stop asking, "What is your passion?" and start asking, "What are you curious about? What are you willing to keep doing, even when it is hard? What keeps tugging at you, even if you are not great at it yet?" Take John, an accountant who spent his weekends tinkering with old radios. At first, it was just a way to relax. Then he started learning more about electronics. He joined online communities. Years later, he opened a small repair shop that slowly turned into a full-time business. No one would have guessed that repairing radios would become his passion. But he built it step by step. We must also be patient with our passions. The early stages are often awkward. Like learning to dance or speak a new language. You feel clumsy. You doubt yourself. But if you persist through that discomfort, if you continue showing up, something happens. Your brain begins to link that activity with satisfaction. That is how emotional attachment builds. That is how interest turns into identity. Passion is also rarely constant. Even people who love what they do have hard days. That does not mean their passion has disappeared. It means they are human. Passion is not a fire that never dims. It is a fire you keep feeding with practice, curiosity, and purpose. And yes, purpose matters. The most enduring passions are connected to something bigger than ourselves. People fall in love with what they do when it begins to serve others. A baker who realizes her cakes brighten someone's celebration. A teacher who sees the light in a student's eyes. A craftsman who knows his hands build something that lasts. Passion anchored in service becomes nearly unshakable. So if you are still searching for your passion, that is not a problem. That is the process. Instead of waiting for clarity, take action. Explore widely. Reflect often. Stay with things long enough to understand them deeply. Give yourself permission to not know and permission to change. Because grit is not just about sticking to a goal. It is about sticking to a meaningful goal. And meaning does not always reveal itself at the beginning. It unfolds along the way. Passion is not a destination you find. It is a journey you create. Part 6, The Role of Purpose and Meaning. There comes a point in every journey when effort alone is not enough. You wake up tired. You lose your motivation. The novelty fades. And in that moment, something deeper must carry you forward. That something is purpose. Purpose gives grit its soul. Let us begin with a man named Ravi. He worked long hours at a job he once loved, managing a team in a growing tech company. At first, he thrived on the challenge. But over time, the pressure mounted. Deadlines became routine, meetings felt empty, and burnout crept in. Just when he thought about quitting, something unexpected happened. His daughter asked him to speak at her school about technology. Standing in front of those students, explaining how innovation could change lives, Ravi felt something stir inside him. He remembered why he started. He was not just building products, he was building tools that could make life better. That purpose reignited his spark. Angela Duckworth found that the grittiest people are not just hard workers, they are deeply connected to the why behind their effort. They feel that what they are doing serves a greater cause. That kind of meaning transforms effort from a burden into a mission. Purpose does not have to be grand or world-changing. It does not require a stage, a movement, or a million followers. It can be quiet and personal. A mother who wakes up early to provide for her children. A bus driver who takes pride in getting people to work safely. A nurse who comforts patients through their most vulnerable moments. These people may not see their names in lights, but they live with purpose and it makes them strong. When your work connects to something bigger than yourself, the hard parts stop feeling pointless. You stop asking, why is this so difficult, and start asking, what can I give through this? That mindset shift is powerful. Angela shares a story of a janitor working at a hospital. When asked what his job was, he replied, I help save lives. To an outsider, he was just cleaning floors. But to him, he was contributing to a mission, maintaining a clean, safe environment where healing could happen. That sense of meaning gave his work dignity and his effort endurance. Purpose fuels perseverance by anchoring your actions in significance. Without it, even talent and effort can feel empty. With it, ordinary tasks become meaningful, and long-term goals become deeply personal. Let us take another example, a young teacher named Asha who chose to work in an underfunded school district. Her days were exhausting. The systems were broken. The support was minimal. And yet, she stayed. Why? Because she saw every student not as a number, but as a future. She believed that education was not just information, but liberation. That belief, that sense of mission helped her endure the chaos and pour herself into the work. Years later, one of her students, now a college graduate, said, "She saved my life." That is what purpose does. It turns effort into impact. Purpose also has the power to pull us through failure. When the outcome does not come, when progress is slow or setbacks hit hard, purpose keeps us in the game. It reminds us that we are not just working for applause or recognition. We are working because it matters. But what if you do not know your purpose yet? That is okay. Purpose is not always loud or obvious. Sometimes it begins as a quiet question: what do I care about? What breaks my heart? What excites me, not just for myself, but for others? You might not have all the answers right away, but even asking those questions opens a path. And purpose grows through doing. It grows when you step into roles that serve others. When you take responsibility. When you contribute. Often, we find our purpose not by looking inward, but by looking outward at the people we can help, the problems we can solve, the legacy we want to leave. In workplaces, schools, and homes, leaders can help others connect with purpose. It happens when a manager explains how each role supports a bigger vision. When a parent reminds their child not just to study, but to imagine the kind of life their education can help build. When a coach tells their team, we are not just here to win. We are here to grow. Purpose is not only the key to lasting grit, it is the compass that helps us choose what is worth being gritty about. Because grit without direction can become burnout. But grit anchored in meaning becomes unstoppable. It is the difference between dragging your feet and marching with conviction. Between enduring the grind and embracing it. And here is the best part: purpose does not just make you stronger, it makes your life richer. It transforms even the simplest tasks into acts of service. It turns daily work into a contribution. It gives your story weight and worth. So, as you build your grit, do not just ask, how hard am I working? Ask, why does this matter to me and to others? Because in that answer lies the energy that does not fade. The fuel that does not run out. The meaning that makes every step, even the hard ones, deeply worth it. Part 7, The Journey is the Reward. There is a story about a sculptor who worked for years on a statue in the quiet of his workshop. Each day, he would chip, carve, and polish, even though no one was watching. A visitor once asked him, "Why do you spend so much time perfecting details that no one will ever see?" The sculptor smiled and said, "Because I will see it." That is the essence of grit, not the applause, not the trophy, but the love of the process. The journey itself becomes the reward. By now, we have met many people who exemplify perseverance: athletes, teachers, artists, parents, workers, soldiers. Their paths were not paved with ease. Most faced obstacles that could have made them quit. But they kept going, not just because of outcomes, but because they were deeply committed to who they were becoming. Angela Duckworth often emphasizes that gritty people are driven by a long-term goal, a calling, a commitment, a vision. But just as important is the realization that growth happens while you pursue the goal, not only when you reach it. A young musician once spent 10 years mastering her instrument before she ever performed publicly. A friend asked her why she did not share her music sooner. She said, "I wanted to fall in love with the sound before I invited others in." That kind of dedication, quiet, invisible, enduring, is what builds greatness. You see, we live in a world obsessed with speed. Instant success, overnight fame, quick wins. But grit tells a different story. It speaks of slow progress. Of repetition. Of getting up, again and again, even when the results are far away. This mindset is rare. It is hard to stay motivated when there is no scoreboard, no finish line in sight. But that is what separates those who dabble from those who master. Gritty people understand that excellence is not a moment, it is a habit. Consider the story of Sandeep, an entrepreneur who failed 3 times before his idea finally took off. Every time he failed, people told him to quit, to move on. But Sandeep was not chasing a trend. He was pursuing a vision. And more than that, he loved the work. He loved solving problems, learning from mistakes, building something from scratch. The final success was sweet, but it was not the real reward. The real reward was becoming the kind of person who does not give up. In the long run, the journey molds you far more than the outcome ever will. Grit teaches us patience. It reminds us that mastery takes time. That no one wakes up excellent. That behind every success story is a trail of discipline, failure, and persistence. But it also teaches joy, the quiet, deep joy that comes from fully engaging in something that matters to you. When you begin to enjoy the process, you are no longer held hostage by outcomes. You do not panic over delays. You do not break down after one failure. You trust that every step, even the hard ones, are part of your becoming. That is what makes grit sustainable, not just strength, but meaning. Not just endurance, but love for the craft, love for the cause, love for the climb. And along the way, something else happens. You start to build identity. You stop saying I am trying to be this kind of person, and start saying I am this kind of person. You are no longer just running a race, you are walking your path. The sculptor, the musician, the teacher, the athlete, they are not doing it for medals. They are doing it because it makes them feel alive. You do not have to be perfect to have grit. You do not need flawless discipline or constant motivation. You just need to keep coming back. Keep choosing to try. Keep showing up for what matters. And over time, something beautiful happens. You start to see how far you have come. You look back, not just at what you have achieved, but at who you have become. More patient. More focused. More resilient. And in that reflection, you realize the journey was always the point. So whether your path is steep or winding, whether your pace is fast or slow, remember this: you are not falling behind. You are moving forward, step by step, in a story that is uniquely yours. Celebrate that. Not the destination, not the applause, but the quiet, courageous decision to keep going. Because grit is not just how you achieve goals. It is how you live a life that matters. Thank you for spending this time with us at Books Arena. What you have just listened to is not just a summary of ideas, it is a reminder of something already within you. Grit is not reserved for the extraordinary. It does not require perfect circumstances or special talent. It grows in everyday decisions, in choosing to try again, in caring deeply, and in continuing even when things get hard. Whether you are chasing a dream, rebuilding after failure, raising a family, or simply trying to become better at what you do, grit can be your companion. It is not always loud or visible. Sometimes, it is the quiet strength that gets you out of bed when no one else understands why. Sometimes, it is the voice that says, "Not yet," when everything else says, "Give up." Angela Duckworth's work helps us see that success is not magic, it is effort, direction, and heart over time. And the beauty is, we all have access to those things. So, wherever you are on your journey, keep going. Keep choosing passion and perseverance. Because grit is not about winning, it is about showing up, again and again, for what matters most. Welcome back to Books Arena, where stories are more than just words, they are experiences. Today, we are diving into a story that will keep you questioning what is real, what is true, and who you can trust. A story that explores the darkness behind perfect marriages and perfect smiles. We present to you the audiobook of Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn, a psychological thriller that has captivated millions of readers and inspired a blockbuster film. This is not just a murder mystery. It is a deeply layered narrative about manipulation, media, love, betrayal, and the lies we tell others and ourselves. It pulls back the curtain on the image of the ideal couple and forces us to confront the uncomfortable truths that lie beneath. At the heart of Gone Girl is a husband and wife, Nick and Amy Dunn. On the surface, they are attractive, intelligent, and seem to have it all. But when Amy suddenly goes missing on their 5th wedding anniversary, the picture-perfect image begins to crack. The media turns its lens on Nick. The police begin digging. Secrets come out. And suddenly, you are not sure who to believe. Gillian Flynn constructs this novel with expert precision, using a dual narrative style, flipping between Nick's present-day point of view and Amy's diary entries. This gives readers a shifting, unreliable perspective that keeps us on edge from the very first chapter. In this audiobook, we will explore the story in 7 parts, followed by a final reflection. Along the way, we will connect the fiction to real-life patterns, the way media influences public opinion, how relationships can twist under pressure, and how perception can often be more powerful than truth. So grab your headphones, settle in, and prepare yourself for a suspenseful ride through the secrets of a marriage. This is Gone Girl. This is Books Arena. Let us begin. Part 1, The Disappearance. It all begins on the morning of July 5, Nick and Amy Dunn's 5th wedding anniversary. A morning like any other, in a quiet suburban town of North Carthage, Missouri. Nick arrives home to find something terrifying: his wife, Amy, is missing. There is no note. There are signs of a struggle. The iron is still hot. The front door is wide open. The cat is outside. And Amy is gone. Nick calls the police. What starts as a simple missing persons report quickly unravels into something much darker. The cops arrive. They look at the broken glass table, the bloodstains, and Nick's strangely calm behavior. From that point on, Nick is no longer the worried husband, he is the prime suspect. But let us rewind. Who are Nick and Amy? Nick Dunn is a writer, or at least he used to be. A once promising magazine journalist who lost his job during the economic crash. He is quiet, sarcastic, emotionally distant, and not always honest. After losing his job in New York, he moves Amy back to his hometown in Missouri to care for his ailing mother. Amy Elliott Dunn is a New Yorker through and through. Raised by wealthy psychologist parents who built their careers on a children's book series called Amazing Amy, loosely based on her life. Amy is intelligent, beautiful, and complicated. Her diary entries reveal a witty, loving, but slowly unraveling woman, a woman struggling in a marriage that has lost its spark. In their early days, Nick and Amy seemed perfect for each other. They were witty, charming, and matched each other's sarcasm with ease. But slowly, real life caught up. Job losses, relocation, financial stress, and unmet expectations began to eat away at their connection. Resentments formed. Lies crept in. Gillian Flynn brilliantly alternates between Nick's present-day narration and Amy's past diary entries, giving us two perspectives on the same relationship, and they do not match. Where Nick paints a cold, controlling Amy, Amy's diary shows a woman slowly pushed to her emotional limit. It makes the reader, or in this case, the listener, constantly question the truth. Is Nick hiding something? Or is Amy? The media quickly gets involved, turning Amy's disappearance into a national headline. Her parents fly in, holding press conferences. Volunteers organize search parties. Nick stands awkwardly beside Amy's missing poster, holding up a smile that seems forced. And the public does not buy it. TV pundits, news anchors, and social media influencers begin tearing into him. Why is Nick so calm? Why does he not seem heartbroken? Why did he not know his wife's blood type? Why did he smile in front of the cameras? Nick starts looking more and more guilty, even to the people closest to him. In a real-life parallel, we can think about how quickly the media turned on Scott Peterson during the Lacey Peterson disappearance case in 2002. Like Nick, Scott had a calm demeanor, inconsistent stories, and hidden affairs. He became a villain in the public eye before a trial even began. Harari, in Sapiens, taught us how shared stories and public belief shape history, and here, Flynn shows us how public perception shapes justice. Back in the novel, Nick's sister Margot, nicknamed Go, is one of the only people who believes in him. She urges him to be honest, especially when the police begin searching his computer, his credit card statements, and his phone records. And then the truth starts to leak. Nick is having an affair. A secret 23-year-old student named Andy. Beautiful, wide-eyed, and dangerously young. It is the betrayal that turns suspicion into belief. If Nick could lie to everyone about this, what else is he hiding? But even then, there is something off. Nick is flawed. He is selfish. But is he capable of murder? Amy's diary entries continue to give us glimpses into their marriage. She describes a man who grew cold, who frightened her, who may have hurt her. The tension is rising. The police find more and more strange clues: a forged credit card, a life insurance policy, and a box in the woodshed filled with suspicious items. The final piece is the anniversary treasure hunt. Every year, Amy sends Nick on a scavenger hunt across the city, clues that lead to meaningful places in their relationship. This year's clues take on new meaning. They hint at secrets Amy knew, lies she uncovered, and a dark game she may have been playing long before her disappearance. Gillian Flynn masterfully constructs this part of the story like a puzzle. Every scene raises more questions than it answers. Is Nick being framed? Did Amy plan this? Is she dead? Missing? Or worse, watching? By the end of this part, we are not sure what kind of story we are even in. Is it a murder mystery? A relationship drama? A psychological game? One thing is certain, everyone is lying about something. And just when you think you have figured it out, the story turns. Part 2, The Perfect Wife, The Perfect Lie. Welcome back to Books Arena. In the last part, we saw the cracks in Nick and Amy's marriage begin to widen. Amy is missing, Nick is lying, and the entire country is watching. But in Gone Girl, nothing is ever what it seems. And now, we are about to enter the part of the story where the ground truly begins to shift beneath us. We start with Amy's diary. At first, Amy's voice felt like a relief, smart, sharp, and vulnerable. But her diary begins to change in tone. She starts to describe feeling unsafe. She writes that Nick is growing more distant, even cruel. There is a chilling entry where she says, "He pushed me. Not hard. But enough." These moments plant a terrifying idea: maybe Nick really did hurt her. Nick, meanwhile, is spiraling. The media storm is growing stronger. News vans are parked outside his house. Reporters are knocking on doors. And online, 1,000 opinions fly around like arrows: Nick killed Amy. Nick is innocent. Amy faked it. This is a mirror to how our real world often functions now, where online speculation can become more powerful than actual evidence. There is a powerful real-life example in the Meredith Kercher case, where the suspect, Amanda Knox, was tried by the media as much as by the courts. Her facial expressions, her behavior, even how she smiled, were dissected and judged. Just like Nick. But now, we hit the turning point in Gone Girl. And if you are listening for the first time, this is your spoiler warning. Halfway through the book, Gillian Flynn flips the narrative completely. We discover something shocking. Amy is not dead. She is alive. And she planned everything. Her diary? Fake. Every word carefully crafted. Amy created a fictional version of herself to frame Nick for her murder. Why? Because she found out about his affair. Because she believed he had stopped loving her. Because she wanted revenge, and she wanted it to be perfect. Amy is not just smart. She is terrifyingly meticulous. She created a false trail, staged a violent crime scene, planted misleading clues, forged her own diary, and even faked her own disappearance. She went into hiding, convinced that the police would eventually charge Nick with her murder. Her plan was that he would be executed, and she would be discovered just in time to enjoy her new life as the famous survivor. It is a jaw-dropping twist, not just because it shocks the reader, but because it makes you question everything you thought you knew. Amy calls this her cool girl monologue, one of the most famous parts of the book. She says that women are trained to be whatever their partner wants. Cool girls love football, drink beer, never complain, stay sexy and sweet forever. And Amy tried to be that woman for Nick until she realized it was a lie. Her anger, her plan, her entire twisted revenge, it comes from the way she feels erased in the relationship. This moment resonates with many listeners and readers. In real life, many people, especially women, struggle with the pressure to perform a version of themselves that pleases others, even if it means losing who they really are. Amy takes this idea to the extreme. But that is what Gone Girl does best. It takes normal, real emotions, resentment, betrayal, loneliness, and stretches them into psychological warfare. Meanwhile, Nick realizes he has to play her game. He begins to suspect that Amy is still alive. He picks up on the clues in her treasure hunt, rereads her diary entries, and begins to understand how carefully she set him up. So what does he do? He goes public. On national television, Nick gives an emotional interview. He apologizes to Amy. He admits to being a bad husband. He says he loves her, misses her, and wants her back. But deep down, he is trying to draw her out. Nick knows Amy better than anyone else, and he knows she will not be able to resist seeing her story unfold. And he is right. Amy, while hiding in a rundown motel under a fake name, watches the interview. At first, she is angry. Then, she is intrigued. She misses being admired. She misses Nick being the man she wanted him to be. And slowly, her plan begins to crack. However, her time in hiding is not easy. She meets dangerous people. Her money is stolen. She realizes that life on the run is not the glamorous freedom she imagined. And suddenly, returning to Nick, the man she wanted to destroy, becomes the safer option. In this part of the book, we begin to realize Amy is not a victim. Nick is not a hero. They are both deeply flawed, dangerous people, locked in a toxic relationship that has gone far beyond repair, and yet neither of them can seem to walk away. This is not a love story. This is not a whodunit. This is a war between two people who know each other too well and cannot stop playing the game. Part 3, A Marriage Built on Secrets. Welcome back to Books Arena, where we dive deeper into the darkest corners of storytelling. So far in Gone Girl, we have seen the public fall for the image of the perfect wife, only to be shown the terrifying truth: Amy is alive, and everything was staged. Now in part 3, we watch both Nick and Amy start shifting their strategies not for love, but for survival. Nick, at this point, knows who he is dealing with. He understands that Amy is not coming home out of guilt or fear. She will only return if she feels like she has won. And in Amy's world, victory means control. Control over the story, over Nick, and over how the world sees her. So Nick begins his own performance. In his interviews, he becomes the perfect husband. He starts speaking her language, the language of admiration, romance, memory. He follows the treasure hunt clues, knowing Amy is watching. He recreates their early love story in the public eye. Not because he believes in it, but because he knows Amy wants to be adored. This part of the novel forces us to question the roles we play in relationships. How much of ourselves do we hide? How often do we perform what the other person expects, even if it is not who we are? In real life, we often hear stories of people who live double lives. From spouses with secret families to people pretending to be someone else online for years. The truth is, many relationships are built not on truth, but on perception, just like Amy and Nick's. While Nick is playing his role, Amy is facing her own reality check. In the motel where she is hiding, she meets Greta and Jeff, a couple who at first seem harmless, even helpful. But soon, they realize Amy is running from something and she has cash. One night, they steal everything from her, her money, her freedom, her control. For someone like Amy, who has always been 10 steps ahead, this moment is a harsh reminder: life is not a story you can write perfectly. With her resources gone and danger closing in, Amy turns to the only person from her past who ever worshipped her, Desi Collings. Desi is a wealthy, obsessive ex-boyfriend who never truly let Amy go. He once tried to take his own life when she broke up with him. Amy knows that Desi's love is suffocating, but also useful. She contacts him, faking tears, bruises, and terror, and he rescues her, taking her to a heavily secured lake house, away from the world. Now, Amy is no longer in control. Desi is generous but possessive. He monitors her every move, controls what she eats, how she dresses, and where she goes. The protector has become a new prison. It is ironic Amy, who faked abuse to manipulate the world, is now trapped in a real cycle of control. And here, Gillian Flynn raises an uncomfortable question. What happens when the manipulator loses control? Meanwhile, Nick is growing smarter. He hires Tanner Bolt, a high-profile defense lawyer who specializes in managing public perception. Tanner knows how to spin the media, how to win over juries, and most importantly how to handle a story that makes no sense. He does not believe Nick is innocent, but he believes Nick can be saved. Tanner coaches Nick on how to present himself humble, honest, remorseful. He tells him the truth is not always what wins, what matters is what people are willing to believe. This is eerily similar to modern-day media trials. Think about celebrities or political figures involved in scandals. Sometimes, truth is less important than branding. A well-timed apology, a touching interview, or a viral clip can reshape public opinion faster than facts. Nick is learning how to perform, just like Amy. Now, the story is a chess game, move after move, strategy after strategy. Amy knows she cannot stay locked in Desi's house forever. Nick knows Amy is watching, judging his every action. The police, the media, the public, they all swing back and forth, unsure who to trust. This part of Gone Girl shows us how far two people will go when the truth is no longer about right or wrong but about winning. It is a terrifying portrait of a marriage where love was replaced by calculation. Where intimacy was replaced by manipulation. Where the question is no longer what happened, but rather, who will win. And still, the most haunting thing is, they might actually still love each other. Part 4, The Return. Welcome back to Books Arena. If you are still with us, you know this is no longer just a missing person mystery. It is now a psychological chess match between two people who once said I do and meant it until the lies began to replace love. When we left off, Amy was trapped. Her carefully planned escape had fallen apart. She was broke, stranded, and now locked inside a golden cage, Desi Collings' lake house, a fortress disguised as a romantic retreat. But Desi is not the white knight Amy hoped he would be. He is possessive, obsessive, and ultimately a man who sees Amy as a trophy, not a person. For someone like Amy used to pulling all the strings, this is intolerable. And here, Gillian Flynn presents one of the most disturbing twists yet. Amy begins plotting her second escape. But this time, she cannot simply sneak away. Desi is watching her every move. So, she decides to take the only route left. She frames Desi for her kidnapping, rape, and imprisonment and ultimately, murders him. Yes. Amy kills Desi. She drugs him, seduces him, and slashes his throat during an intimate moment. The scene is horrifying and brilliantly written. Amy is covered in blood, bruised, and tearful, exactly the image of a broken, abused woman. And when she shows up at Nick's doorstep disheveled, injured, and crying, the world believes her. The cameras are rolling. The reporters scream her name. The police rush to her side. The woman who was gone has now returned. And Nick? He plays along. Even though he knows the truth that Amy killed Desi, that she staged the entire disappearance, that she framed him for murder, he hugs her in front of the cameras. He carries her across the threshold. He plays the part of the relieved, devoted husband. Because now, they are locked together forever. This moment is the heart of Flynn's commentary: how performance can override reality. How easily the public can be fooled when given a simple story: the victim wife, the devoted husband, the happy ending. It is what people want to believe. In real life, we have seen similar event stories that looked one way at first, only to be revealed as something much darker later. From Jussie Smollett's staged attack to Elizabeth Holmes' Theranos fraud, the truth often unravels long after the spotlight has moved on. But Flynn takes it even further. Because once Amy is home, the truth does not matter at all. The police are suspicious, the timeline is off, the details are shaky, but Amy is too good. She has cleaned up the evidence, given them a dead man, and a perfectly tragic story. And worst of all, she is pregnant. Yes, Amy has inseminated herself with Nick's previously frozen sperm, kept from when they were trying to conceive years earlier to bind him to her permanently. Now, Nick is trapped. Publicly, he cannot walk away without looking like a monster. Privately, he cannot leave his unborn child to be raised by someone capable of such cruelty. In this part of the story, Flynn explores the horrifying idea that love is not always the opposite of hate. Sometimes, the two can exist side by side. Nick and Amy know each other completely. Their worst fears, their deepest flaws, their darkest secrets, all of it is out in the open. And somehow, that intimacy keeps them together. They begin to settle into their old routines. They do interviews together. Write a memoir. Give the world a story that shines bright on the surface and rots underneath. Nick tries to expose her. He writes a tell-all manuscript, one that could ruin her, but he never publishes it. In the end, he does not leave. He stays. Whether it is out of fear, love, or obligation to the child, we are never fully told. And Amy? She wins. Not just because she gets away with murder. Not just because she avoids justice. But because she writes her own story, from start to finish, and everyone else, Nick included, is trapped in it. It is a brutal truth: not every villain gets punished. Not every hero is innocent. And sometimes, the scariest thing is not being alone, it is being with someone who knows exactly who you are and stays anyway. By the end of this part, Gone Girl becomes more than a thriller. It is a commentary on marriage, identity, and performance, on how people wear masks not just for the world, but for each other. And sometimes, those masks become their real faces. Part 5, The Prison Called Home. Welcome back to Books Arena. We have reached a chilling phase in the story, not the aftermath of a crime, but the beginning of a life sentence in a marriage built on lies, betrayal, and survival. Amy has returned. Desi is dead. And now, the world has embraced the fairy tale. But behind closed doors, the truth simmers like a slow poison. Nick knows Amy is a killer. A liar. A master manipulator. And yet, he is still there under the same roof, eating breakfast at the same table, watching the woman who nearly destroyed his life pretend to be his loving wife. This is no longer a thriller. This is a psychological prison. Nick is no longer trying to escape punishment, he is trying to escape Amy's version of reality. In interviews, Amy is polished, measured, tearful in just the right moments. She tells the world that Desi kidnapped her, abused her, held her hostage. She paints herself as the ultimate survivor. And the public eats it up. It is a powerful critique of how society consumes female trauma, how easily a beautiful, intelligent woman can manipulate the narrative if she knows the right language. Amy has studied it. She knows what the media wants. She knows how to sell pain. We see this in the real world constantly. Some stories rise not because they are true, but because they are told in a way that fits what people want to hear. It is not about justice, it is about performance. Nick watches this happen in real time. He cannot expose her. The police have no evidence. And worse, Amy is now pregnant. And this is not a false alarm. She has truly, biologically made sure she is carrying his child. She used a sample they had stored during fertility treatment without his consent to ensure he could never leave. It is not just manipulation. It is entrapment. Now, even if he escapes Amy, he can never escape her child. Nick's thoughts become darker. He starts to imagine what it would take to leave. He dreams of writing a tell-all memoir. He outlines the entire truth from Amy's diary forgery to her staged disappearance to Desi's murder. And for a moment, we see Nick as a man ready to fight back. But when Amy reads the draft, she smiles. She tells him, "If you ever publish this, I will destroy you." And she can. She is smart. Careful. She knows how to play the long game. Nick realizes that exposing her would mean losing his child either legally or emotionally. The public would never believe him over Amy. And if he leaves, Amy wins in a different way. She keeps the child, the house, the story. So he stays. This section of the book turns the idea of domestic bliss into something horrific. It is a home filled with smiles, interviews, hand-holding and silent battles over power. Nick begins to adapt. He learns when to compliment her. When to flatter her. He plays the part of the perfect husband not because he loves Amy, but because he understands something terrifying: this is his life now. This raises uncomfortable questions about marriage and long-term relationships. How many couples stay together not out of love, but because it is easier than leaving? How many people perform their lives just to maintain peace? In one scene, Amy tells Nick, "We're so alike. We deserve each other." And the scary part? She is right. Because Nick is not innocent. He was unfaithful. He lied. He resented Amy, ignored her, belittled her. He became the very thing she feared, and in turn, she became his worst nightmare. It is a mutual destruction pact disguised as love. This is what makes Gone Girl so haunting. It is not about a villain and a victim. It is about two people who bring out the absolute worst in each other, and who are too broken or too clever to walk away. Their child is born. A baby boy. A new beginning or a new weapon, depending on who you ask. Nick looks at the child and feels hope. Maybe he can protect this innocent life. Maybe he can break the cycle. But he also knows that child is being raised in a house of lies, a house where both parents are pretending to love each other for the sake of something they barely understand. Nick makes a final decision: he will stay. He will raise his son. He will outlast Amy, one day at a time. And Amy? She has everything she ever wanted. Her husband. Her baby. Her happy ending. And she knows she will never be punished for what she did. This part of the story reminds us that evil is not always loud or obvious. Sometimes, it smiles at you across the dinner table. Sometimes, it kisses you goodnight. Part 6, Love, Lies, and Lifelong Sentences. Welcome back to Books Arena. We are nearing the conclusion of Gone Girl, a novel that started with a simple question: what happened to Amy Dunn? And turned into one of the most haunting portraits of marriage ever written. In this part, we no longer follow a murder case. We follow two people trapped inside a life they cannot escape. Nick and Amy are back together. Their child is born. The public believes in their happy ending. But behind the polished photos, rehearsed interviews, and carefully curated smiles, lies a house built on manipulation, violence, and mutual fear. Let us start with Nick. He is no longer the careless, arrogant man we met in the beginning. Something in him has changed, or rather, something has died. His sense of hope, his belief in freedom, maybe even his moral compass. Now, everything he does is carefully measured. Not for love but for survival. He tells himself he is staying for the child. That he needs to protect his son from growing up in a house full of lies. But deep down, he also knows something darker: he is complicit now. Amy may be the one who framed and killed, but Nick? He is the one who stayed. There is a moment where he says, "I feel myself becoming someone I do not like. Someone who lies, someone who stays quiet. Someone who watches and waits." This is what emotional captivity looks like. It is not chains or locked doors. It is manipulation so deep that the victim forgets what freedom ever felt like. And Amy? She is thriving. She has written a book about her ordeal. She has been praised as a survivor, a hero, a brilliant wife and mother. She controls the narrative, the money, the house, and now, the child. She basks in the admiration of the public. But more than that, she enjoys having Nick where she wants him, obedient, quiet, emotionally bound to her. This is what makes Amy one of the most terrifying characters in modern fiction, not because she is a killer, but because she is so deeply convincing. She can lie, murder, manipulate, and still play the role of the perfect wife better than anyone else. And in doing so, Flynn asks us a terrifying question: what if the person who knows you best is also the person who can destroy you completely? In real life, we hear stories of toxic relationships, partners who control through guilt, gaslighting, or quiet intimidation. What makes Gone Girl so powerful is that it does not just show a toxic relationship, it shows two people who willingly live inside one. And here is the hardest truth of all: Nick and Amy might actually be right for each other. Yes, they are destructive. Yes, their love is warped. But in a twisted way, they understand each other better than anyone else ever could. Amy tells Nick, "We are the same. We deserve each other." And Nick does not argue. He accepts it. Because to walk away would mean exposing his child to Amy without him there to protect. It would mean destroying the public image he has helped rebuild. And most importantly, it would mean admitting defeat. So they stay. They go to interviews. They attend book signings. They raise their child. And the world around them believes in the fairy tale, two people torn apart and brought back together by fate. But we, the readers, the listeners here at Books Arena, know better. We know this is not love. It is something more dangerous, a perfect lie that has become so convincing, even the liars believe it. Gillian Flynn ends the novel not with a death or an escape, but with a quiet surrender. Nick and Amy remain together, not out of romance, but because neither of them knows how to be anything else. It is unsettling. It is honest. It is unforgettable. This part forces us to think, what does a happy ending really mean? Is it peace? Truth? Justice? Or simply the appearance of stability no matter the cost? Because sometimes, the scariest thing is not the monster outside your house. It is the person who sleeps next to you, smiles across the table, and knows exactly what to say and exactly what to hide. Part 7, The Truth Beneath the Surface. Welcome back to Books Arena. We have followed the twisted path of Nick and Amy Dunn, from the disappearance to the deceit, from murder to manipulation. Now, as we close the final chapter of Gone Girl, we must ask, what is the story truly about? At first glance, Gone Girl is a mystery. A thriller. A whodunit with a missing wife, a suspicious husband, and a deadly plot twist. But look deeper and you will see something far more unsettling. This is a mirror, held up to modern relationships, gender roles, media culture, and the masks we wear to survive. Let us start with marriage. Nick and Amy are not just a toxic couple. They are a reflection of a truth many couples fear to admit, that over time, people stop being who they were when they first met. Nick once loved cool girl Amy, fun, sexy, laid back, and effortless. But Amy admits she faked that version of herself to win his heart. Once married, she stopped performing and Nick started to withdraw. He became lazy, distant, unfaithful. So Amy punished him in the most extreme way. This is not to justify her actions, but to understand them. Flynn forces us to ask, how much of our love is real, and how much is performance? Do we love people, or do we love the version of them they show us? And what happens when they stop pretending? That question lingers over the entire book. Next, we confront the role of the media. When Amy goes missing, the media does what it always does: it creates a story. The beautiful missing wife. The cold, lying husband. The candlelight vigils. The hashtags. The morning news features. It is not about justice. It is about entertainment. Real-life cases have shown us the same. From the O.J. Simpson trial to Amanda Knox, the media has always played a major role in shaping public opinion long before a courtroom makes its decision. Amy understands this. She uses it. She becomes the victim America wants. And when she returns bloodied, bruised, and rescued, she gives them the fairy tale they crave. The public never questions her story. Because it fits the narrative. And Nick? He becomes part of that performance too. This is where Flynn's storytelling becomes deeply satirical. She is not just writing about two people, she is writing about us, the readers, the watchers, the world that buys into appearances without asking what lies beneath. Another powerful theme is the question of power and control. Nick cheats. Amy frames him. Nick threatens to expose her. Amy traps him with a child. Their relationship becomes a war not of love, but of leverage. And through this battle, Flynn exposes the terrifying idea that some people do not want love, they want dominance. They want to win. In real life, relationships break down for many reasons: trust, communication, resentment. But in Gone Girl, the breakdown is turned into a weapon. Each person uses the other's vulnerabilities to gain the upper hand. What makes this so chilling is how quiet it becomes by the end. There is no final explosion. No courtroom drama. No public collapse. Nick and Amy simply return to their home. They raise their child. They give interviews. They write books. They look like everyone else, and that is the scariest part. Because Flynn is saying, these people could be your neighbors, your co-workers, your family, or even, you. Finally, we come to the lasting message of Gone Girl. It is not about solving a crime. It is about recognizing the lies we live with. The lies we tell ourselves. The roles we play. The truths we bury. The people we become, not because we want to, but because we think we have to. Amy is not just a villain. She is a symbol of a woman who felt invisible, underestimated, and discarded, and who decided to reclaim control in the most horrifying way possible. Nick is not just a victim. He is a symbol of the man who wanted fantasy over reality, who ignored the depth of his partner until it was too late. In the end, they both deserve each other. Not because they are soulmates, but because no one else would survive them. As the final pages close, Gone Girl leaves us disturbed, thoughtful, and slightly paranoid. It reminds us that what you see is never the full story. That sometimes, the most dangerous people are the ones who know you best. And here, on Books Arena, that is what we aim to uncover: stories that entertain, yes, but also reveal truths we often try to ignore. Thank you for joining us through this dark, unforgettable journey. If you found this story gripping, shocking, or even unsettling, do not forget to subscribe to Books Arena. There are many more stories waiting, and some of them might just change how you see the world. Until next time, stay curious, stay aware, and never underestimate the power of a well-told lie. Welcome to Books Arena. In this episode 1, invite you to join me in a journey through timeless wisdom captured in the book Focus on What Matters by Darius Forouou. In a world that bombards us with distractions and urgent demands, this book offers a lantern to illuminate the path toward clarity, intention, and purpose. Together we will unfold 7 powerful lessons drawn from Stoic-inspired letters, lessons about how to focus, how to act, how to cultivate simplicity and resilience, how to let go, and ultimately how to live with choice rather than drift. These ideas are not abstract. Each part will unfold through stories of real people, people much like you, people much like me, facing everyday crossroads. My hope is that by the end of this journey you will feel not only inspired but equipped to act. Let us begin this adventure together here on Books Arena. Part 1, The Stoic Way. Imagine a teacher in an ancient courtyard in Rome. He stands before a small crowd. His voice is calm, steady, and measured. He invites his pupils to imagine that life is a battlefield of thoughts, desires, events, and emotions. He invites them to carry a lantern within themselves that shines steady even in the darkest moments. That teacher is a Stoic. More than 2,000 years have passed. Yet his message is neither antiquated nor lofty. It is deeply human. It is exactly what we need today. The first letter of Focus on What Matters lays down this idea: Stoicism is not resignation. It is the art of mastering the one thing we can control: our own mind. Think of Ravi. Ravi is 30 years old. He works 8-hour days in a busy office. His inbox overflows. He worries constantly about promotion, about money, about what others think of him. One evening he logs onto Books Arena. He hears this narration. At that moment he does not need to solve every problem in his life. He needs to master his calm. That is Stoicism. Ravi decides to take a walk without his phone. He breathes. He reminds himself that the world may change, worries may come and go. But he can choose how he responds. He can settle his mind on the flame of his own reason. He can tell himself, right now I choose to be present. Right now I choose clarity. That simple practice is already a triumph of focus. Another real-world story comes from Malika, a high school teacher in a small town. She cares deeply about her students, sometimes too deeply. When one student arrives late, she sees not a tardy pupil but a troubled life. She stays after class. The next day she reads in the book a short sentence, "You cannot fix what you do not control." She realizes that she cannot save every student from every hardship. She can offer guidance, she can offer care, but she cannot carry them all. That recognition does not make her less compassionate. It frees her to teach from strength rather than from exhaustion. Stoic wisdom speaks not only to moments of external crisis but to ordinary days too. Consider travel. Imagine you are at an airport. Your flight is delayed by hours. Your mind races, what will happen to my schedule? I will miss my meeting. I will disappoint someone I love. The book instructs, focus on what you can control. You can find a quiet corner. You can sit calmly. You can prepare the words you will say in your meeting. You can choose your attitude, not the flight board. I share this story because so many of us have lived it. In India, in the morning rush on the train, the coach is packed. A stranger steps on your foot. You feel annoyance burning inside you. You think of complaining, of pushing back. Then you remember stoicism. You breathe. You smile faintly. You remind yourself that your peace is worth more than your pride. In that moment you have chosen focus. You have chosen peace. The book invites us to carry inner lanterns in 3 ways. First way, remember the boundary between what is within your power and what is not. You cannot change the weather. You cannot change other people. You can change how you respond. That is exquisitely powerful. Second way, train your mind. Just as athletes prepare their bodies, you can prepare your mind. Instead of reacting, you can pause. You can observe your thought. You can ask, is this serving me? Does this serve what matters? Then you can choose to act or to let go. Third way, dwell in the present. The past is gone. The future is not here. What matters is the moment at hand. You build momentum not by clinging to what has been, but by acting now with clarity. By now you may be wondering, how do I make this practical? Think of Kavita, who runs a small grocery shop in a busy market in Maharashtra. Every day the queue grows, the rates fluctuate, customers complain, demands pile up. She could panic. She could resent the chaos. Instead she takes the advice from the letter. She wakes up at dawn. She clears her mind. She makes a simple list, greet customers with kindness, package orders with care, balance her book with calm. She trains her mind like an athlete trains her body. She accepts what she cannot change. She tends what she can. That skill gives her a lightness in her day. That skill is focus. The Stoic way is never about escaping life. It is about engaging more fully, more wisely. When you carry that lantern within you, when you know what is yours to control, when you train your mind and act with presence, you are focusing. You are living what matters even as the world swirls around you. Now here on Books Arena we have sparked our internal lantern. In the next part we will turn to letting go, the art that liberates us from what drains our attention, so we can clear the ground for deeper focus in life. Until then, carry your lantern close, and let your own steady light guide you. Part 2, The Art of Letting Go. Letting go is not weakness. It is not abandonment. It is not carelessness. Letting go is strength. It is the deliberate choice to release the grip on something that no longer serves your well-being, your growth, or your purpose. The book Focus on What Matters makes it clear, your attention is a limited resource, and if you fill it with the past, you cannot give your best to the present. I want you to picture someone holding a rope tightly in their hands. On the other end of that rope is a heavy object sliding further and further away. The rope burns their palms. They are losing energy. Yet they refuse to release it, because they believe that holding on means they are strong. In truth, strength comes when they open their hands and let the rope fall. That is when the pain stops. That is when the healing begins. Let me tell you about Arav. Arav had worked at the same company for 7 years. He gave it his loyalty, his weekends, and his trust. Over time, the leadership changed. The new environment was toxic. He felt unappreciated. He saw no growth ahead. Still, he stayed. Why? Because he told himself, I have invested so much time here. One day, on his way home, he listened to the chapter on letting go. The author described the trap of sunk costs, the human tendency to stay committed to something simply because of past investment. Arav realized he was living in that trap. Within 2 months, he applied for new opportunities. Within 3, he joined a healthier workplace. The day he left, he felt lighter than he had in years. He was not losing 7 years. He was gaining the next 20. Another story comes from Mira, a woman in her 40s who had been holding on to a friendship from her college days. This friend had once been supportive and kind. But over time, the relationship turned one-sided. Mira found herself constantly giving time, energy, and emotional support, but receiving only criticism and negativity in return. Yet she stayed in contact out of habit and nostalgia. One morning, Mira read the book section on emotional baggage. The words struck her: when we keep relationships only because of history, we are living in the past, not the present. That week, Mira gently but firmly created distance. She did not end the friendship in anger, but in peace. She made space for healthier connections. The author explains that letting go can be about more than people or jobs. It can also be about beliefs. Many of us carry outdated definitions of success, often inherited from parents, peers, or society. For example, you may believe that success is only measured in money and titles. You may chase them for years, even if they bring no joy. Letting go of a belief is difficult because it shapes how we see ourselves. Yet the moment we let go, we can redefine success on our own terms. I have seen young entrepreneurs shift from obsessing over revenue numbers to building businesses that actually improve lives. They stopped asking, how much can I get, and started asking, how much value can I give? One powerful exercise from the book is to write down the 3 heaviest burdens in your life right now. These could be situations, relationships, habits, or even grudges. Then ask, do these serve my growth, my peace, my values? If the answer is no, begin the process of letting them go. Sometimes that process is immediate, like deleting an app that consumes your attention. Sometimes it is gradual, like transitioning out of a commitment that no longer fits. The key is to move intentionally. Letting go is also a daily practice in small ways. Think of Ramesh, who lost his temper whenever his neighbor played loud music. He fought about it for months, feeling angry each evening. One day, he realized he could not change his neighbor's habits, but he could change his own reaction. He bought noise-canceling headphones. He played his favorite peaceful music instead. He let go of the fight, and with it, the stress. The situation remained, but the suffering disappeared. The book warns that holding on often comes from fear, the fear of the unknown, the fear of being alone, the fear of failure. The antidote to fear is trust. Trust that when you create space by letting go, better things will enter. Trust that your worth is not tied to what you cling to. Trust that you will adapt and thrive. Letting go does not erase the past. It honors it, but does not let it control you. It is like closing a chapter in a book, not because it was bad, but because the story must move forward. The blank page ahead is yours to fill with focus, with purpose, and with freedom. As you move through life, remember this: every time you say yes to holding on to what drains you, you are saying no to opportunities that could enrich you. The act of letting go is therefore not an ending, but an opening. It is the clearing of soil so that something new can grow. In the next part of Focus on What Matters, we will explore the power of decision-making, how choosing decisively can free you from hesitation and keep you moving toward what matters most. Part 3, The Power of Decision-Making. Life is a series of doors. Some open onto new worlds. Some lead to challenges. Some lead to nothing at all. The truth is, we cannot know with certainty what lies behind each one. Yet we must choose. The act of choosing is what shapes our lives. Focus on What Matters teaches that indecision is more dangerous than making the wrong choice, because hesitation steals time, the one resource we can never replace. Think about Aisha, a young woman offered 2 career paths. One was safe, with a steady income but little excitement. The other was risky, involving a startup with no guarantee of success. She spent months weighing options, making lists of pros and cons, waiting for the perfect sign. But in waiting, she lost both opportunities. The lesson here is not about choosing risk over safety. The lesson is that when we stand still for too long, life moves on without us. The author draws from his own experience, explaining that even imperfect action is better than paralysis. Once a choice is made, we can adapt, learn, and course correct. But if we remain frozen, there is nothing to adjust, nothing to improve, and nothing to gain. Decision-making is not only about big, life-changing moments. It is also about the hundreds of small choices we make every day. Consider Arjun, a father of two. Each evening after work, he faced a simple decision: spend time with his children or continue working on his laptop. Often he told himself he would only work for a few minutes more, but those minutes became hours. One day, after reading the section on decision-making, Arjun decided to set a clear rule: no screens after dinner. That decision changed his evenings. Instead of half listening to his children while typing emails, he became present, reading to them, listening to their stories. The choice was small, but the impact was lasting. The book shares that clarity is the foundation of decisive action. Without knowing what matters to you, your decisions will always feel uncertain. It is like setting sail without a compass. You might move, but you will not know if you are moving in the right direction. This is why the author insists on defining your values and priorities before making important decisions. When you know your destination, you can choose your path with confidence. Let me share the story of Manish, an aspiring athlete. He trained for years but could not decide whether to focus on running or cycling. He feared choosing one meant losing the other. As a result, his progress in both was slow. Then he remembered a sentence from the book: when you divide your focus, you divide your results. He made the choice to commit fully to running for 1 year. That decision led to his first marathon and a personal best he could never have achieved while splitting his attention. The author also warns about decision fatigue, the mental exhaustion that comes from making too many choices in a short time. Imagine a shopkeeper who spends every morning deciding what to wear, what to eat, what route to take, and what tasks to start first. By noon, his mental energy is drained, and important business decisions feel overwhelming. The solution, the book suggests, is to simplify routine decisions. Wear similar clothes each day. Have a standard breakfast. Create a fixed morning schedule. Save your decision-making energy for choices that truly matter. Another valuable insight is that speed matters. This does not mean rushing thoughtlessly, but rather avoiding unnecessary delay. Many opportunities in life are like trains, they will not wait at the platform forever. The author tells of a speaking engagement he once hesitated to accept. By the time he decided, the offer was gone. From that point on, he adopted the habit of deciding within 24 hours for most opportunities. That practice prevented many missed chances. There is also the courage element. Many of us avoid decisions because they carry the possibility of failure. But the truth is, not deciding is also a decision, and often the worst one. I think of Priya, who delayed ending a failing business partnership because she feared conflict. The delay led to more financial loss and strained relationships. When she finally made the decision, she wished she had acted months earlier. The book advises a simple framework for better decisions. First, gather the information you need but set a deadline for doing so. Second, weigh your options against your values and priorities. Third, make the choice, commit to it, and take the first step immediately. Finally, review the outcome, learn from it, and move forward. Decision-making is a skill, and like any skill, it improves with practice. The more choices you make, the more confident you become. And with confidence comes the courage to take on bigger, more meaningful challenges. The act of choosing is, in itself, an act of focus. It is declaring to yourself and the world, this is where I will place my time, my energy, my life. Every decision you make shapes the story you will one day tell. Make it a story worth telling. In the next part of Focus on What Matters, we will discover the joy of simplicity, how removing the excess from your life can reveal the richness that was always there. Part 4, The Joy of Simplicity. There is a kind of freedom that many people never experience. It is not the freedom to travel anywhere, or to buy anything, or to do whatever you want. It is the freedom that comes when your life is uncluttered, when you own fewer things but value them more, when your schedule is lighter but filled with what matters, when your mind is quiet enough to hear its own wisdom. That is the joy of simplicity. The author of Focus on What Matters explains that simplicity is not about deprivation. It is about choosing what stays in your life and what goes. It is about clearing away the noise so the music can be heard. Let us begin with a story. Rohan lived in a small flat in Mumbai, but his home was filled with items he had collected over the years: clothes he never wore, gadgets he never used, books he never read. He thought these possessions brought him comfort. Yet each time he opened his cupboard, he felt overwhelmed. One weekend, inspired by the chapter on simplicity, he decided to remove one item each day that he no longer needed. A shirt that no longer fit. A stack of old magazines. A broken lamp. In 1 month, his space felt lighter. In 3 months, he found himself breathing more easily in his own home. By owning less, he had gained more space, more peace, and more appreciation for what remained. Simplicity is not only about physical things. It is also about mental space. Think of Ananya, who kept a schedule so full that her days felt like a race from one commitment to the next. She believed she was living fully, but in truth, she was exhausting herself. After reading the book section on simplicity, she began saying no to events and tasks that were not essential. She created evenings with no plans. She took walks without her phone. She sat quietly with a cup of tea and let her mind wander. At first, the stillness felt uncomfortable. But soon she discovered something powerful: her creativity returned, her patience increased, and her energy rose. Simplicity had given her back her clarity. The book shares an important truth: our attention is our most valuable resource, and when it is scattered, we lose our ability to enjoy life. By simplifying, we gather our attention in one place, allowing us to experience things deeply. Imagine eating a meal without checking messages, without thinking about the next meeting, without rushing. Every flavor is richer. Every bite is satisfying. That is the power of undivided attention. The author gives the example of ancient Stoic philosophers who lived with few possessions, not because they could not have more, but because they understood that excess often breeds distraction. When you own fewer things, each thing serves a purpose and holds meaning. When your commitments are fewer, each one receives your best energy. Simplicity also applies to decision-making. The fewer unnecessary options you have, the less time you waste choosing between them. This is why some of the most productive leaders in the world wear similar clothes each day or eat similar breakfasts. They save their decision-making energy for the choices that truly matter. One of the most moving examples in the book is about a man named Farid, who decided to live by a simple financial rule: spend less than you earn, and spend only on what aligns with your values. Over time, he discovered that by buying less, he could work fewer hours, spend more time with his family, and invest in experiences rather than things. His life became richer, even as his possessions became fewer. However, simplicity is not automatic. It requires conscious action. We live in a world that constantly tells us we need more clothes, more technology, more activities, more achievements. To embrace simplicity is to go against the current. It is to ask, do I truly need this? Does it add value to my life? And when the answer is no, it is to have the courage to let it go. You can begin with a small step. Clear one drawer. Remove one meeting from your calendar. Unsubscribe from one source of unnecessary information. Over time, these small acts create a lighter, calmer, more intentional life. The joy of simplicity is that it makes room for what truly matters. When you have fewer possessions, you can take better care of them. When you have fewer commitments, you can give more of yourself to each one. When your mind is less cluttered, you can focus on your deepest goals. Simplicity does not limit your life. It expands it. As the author reminds us, the goal is not to own nothing, but to be owned by nothing. When we simplify, we reclaim our time, our space, and our peace. We find that we already have enough. We find that we already are enough. In the next part of Focus on What Matters, we will step into a challenge that touches every life: stress. We will explore not only how to deal with it, but how to transform it into a tool for growth. Part 5, How to Deal with Stress. Stress is a visitor that comes to every home. It wears many disguises: the pile of bills on your desk, the exam you must take, the argument with a friend, the deadlines that seem to multiply overnight. It can arrive suddenly, like a storm, or it can creep in quietly, like a slow leak. The message of Focus on What Matters is clear: you cannot completely remove stress from your life, but you can decide how you will meet it. Imagine a glass of water. It is light if you hold it for a few seconds. It becomes heavier if you hold it for minutes. Hold it for hours and it feels unbearable. Stress works in the same way. The longer you hold onto it without release, the heavier it becomes. The key is not to deny the glass, but to put it down regularly. Let us look at the story of Kunal, a young software engineer in Bengaluru. His workload was high, and the pressure from clients was constant. At first, he worked late into the night, thinking that more hours meant more control. But instead, he began to feel exhausted and irritable. After reading the section on stress, he realized that his approach was unsustainable. The author suggested creating deliberate recovery periods, breaks in the day when the mind and body can reset. Kunal began taking short walks every 2 hours. He scheduled one completely screen-free hour before bed. Within 2 weeks, his concentration improved, and tasks that once felt overwhelming became manageable. The book explains that not all stress is harmful. There is a form of stress called eustress, the kind that challenges you to grow, learn, and adapt. Think of an athlete training for a competition. The physical strain is a form of stress, but it builds strength. Similarly, when you take on a new project, the initial discomfort can sharpen your skills. The key is balance. Too little challenge leads to stagnation, and too much leads to burnout. Consider the example of Ritu, a medical student. Her schedule was packed with classes, hospital shifts, and exams. She felt stressed every day. But instead of trying to eliminate stress entirely, she redefined it. She began to see her studies not as a burden, but as preparation for the life she wanted. She used techniques from the book, breathing exercises to calm her nervous system, setting priorities each morning, and reminding herself that her efforts served a purpose. Slowly, her stress transformed from a weight to a motivator. One of the practical strategies the author shares is the control check. When you feel stressed, ask yourself, is this within my control? If yes, take one small action toward improvement. If no, release it from your mental grip. This approach is rooted in Stoic philosophy, which teaches that we should not waste energy on what lies outside our influence. Another useful practice is what the book calls stress mapping. Take a sheet of paper and list the sources of stress in your life. Next to each, write down the specific action you can take to address it, or write no control if it is beyond your reach. This simple exercise turns a vague sense of overwhelm into a clear map of action and acceptance. The book also highlights the role of the body in stress management. Stress is not only in the mind, it lives in the muscles, the breath, and the heart rate. Physical activity, even something as simple as stretching or a brisk walk, signals the body to release tension. Meditation, deep breathing, and mindfulness are equally powerful tools, because they train the mind to return to the present moment instead of spinning in worry about the future. Let us return to a very common modern example, traffic. You are stuck in your car or on a crowded bus, moving slowly, watching the minutes slip away. You can tighten your grip on the steering wheel, mutter in frustration, and arrive at your destination drained. Or, you can use the time to listen to an audiobook that inspires you, practice deep breathing, or simply observe the world around you without judgment. The situation has not changed, but your experience of it has. Stress often grows in the gap between reality and expectation. When we expect life to be smooth and perfect, every bump feels like a crisis. The author encourages us to accept that challenges are part of the human experience. This acceptance does not mean giving up, it means facing life as it is, with resilience and adaptability. The power in dealing with stress lies in your response. You can let stress drain your energy, or you can use it to sharpen your focus. You can carry it endlessly, or you can put the glass down, even for a moment, to rest your hands. When you focus on what you can control, when you build daily habits that release tension, when you transform pressure into purpose, stress becomes not an enemy, but a teacher. It teaches patience. It teaches strength. It teaches you to choose your state of mind, even when you cannot choose your circumstances. In the next part of Focus on What Matters, we will dive into the very heart of the book's title, The Power of Focus itself. We will see why single-minded attention can create extraordinary results in a world that constantly tries to pull us in every direction. Part 6, The Power of Focus. In a world overflowing with noise, focus has become a rare currency. Notifications blink on our phones, advertisements flash across our screens, and demands pull us in a dozen directions at once. Yet the truth is as old as time: when you direct your full attention toward one meaningful goal, you unlock a force far greater than scattered effort ever could. The book Focus on What Matters begins the section with a simple but striking metaphor. Imagine sunlight spread across a room. It warms everything softly. Now imagine that same sunlight concentrated through a magnifying glass. It can ignite a flame. Focus is the magnifying glass of the mind. When your attention is scattered, your energy is diluted. When it is concentrated, it can set the world on fire. Let us begin with the story of Arjun, a young entrepreneur in Pune. He had 5 different business ideas at once: a cafe, a clothing line, an app, a YouTube channel, and a digital marketing agency. Every week, he jumped from one to the other. Months passed, and none of them truly grew. One day, a mentor gave him a blunt piece of advice: you are planting 5 seeds and giving each a teaspoon of water. Choose one, and give it a bucket. Arjun chose the app idea, poured all his hours and resources into it, and within a year, it became profitable. The other ideas did not vanish, they simply waited until the main tree was strong enough to support them. The author explains that focus is not just about doing one thing, it is about saying no to many other things. Every yes to a distraction is a no to your main priority. This is why the greatest achievers are often the best at declining opportunities that do not align with their mission. Consider the life of Marie Curie, the pioneering scientist. She spent years in a small, poorly equipped laboratory, working tirelessly to isolate radium. The work was slow, exhausting, and physically dangerous. Yet she refused to be pulled away by easier, more comfortable pursuits. That unwavering dedication brought discoveries that changed the course of science. Her story is a reminder: the world rewards depth, not shallowness. In practical terms, the book offers a method called the Daily 3. Each morning, you choose the 3 most important tasks for the day. These are not urgent distractions like checking email or rearranging your desk. They are meaningful actions that move you toward your long-term goals. Once you commit to completing them before anything else, you begin to experience the power of directed effort. The author also warns about fake focus. This happens when you appear busy, but your energy is split into fragments: a little work here, a little scrolling there, a quick chat, a glance at the clock. The result is exhaustion without progress. To escape fake focus, you must create what the book calls focus zones, blocks of time where you work without interruption. No phone. No multitasking. Just the task at hand. Let us look at a simple, everyday example. Suppose you have an important exam in 2 weeks. You could study for 10 minutes, check your phone, watch a video, reply to messages, then study another 10 minutes. Or you could dedicate 1 uninterrupted hour each morning to pure study, with your phone in another room. The second method will accomplish far more, even if the total time is less, because uninterrupted focus allows your brain to enter deep work mode. The author draws from history again with the example of Michelangelo. When asked about the difficulty of carving his masterpiece, David, he said, "It is easy. You just chip away everything that is not David." Focus is the same: it is the art of removing everything that is not your goal, until only the essential remains. Technology, ironically, can be both a threat and a tool for focus. The book suggests using it deliberately: apps that block distractions, timers that create focus intervals, playlists that help you enter a productive state. But technology must serve your focus, not steal it. One particularly memorable exercise in the book is called the single thread. You choose one goal and imagine it as a single golden thread running through your day. Every decision you make either strengthens this thread or frays it. At the end of the day, you look back: did you protect it, or did you let it unravel? This simple mental image can guide you to keep your priorities intact. Focus is not about intensity alone, it is also about duration. A candle burns bright but short if the flame is too high. Similarly, your attention must be sustained over time to produce real results. This is why patience is an inseparable partner to focus. Quick bursts are helpful, but lasting change comes from steady, deliberate effort. The author closes this chapter with a reminder: life offers endless options, but your time is finite. To focus on what matters is to respect the hours you have and to use them for what truly counts. When you master focus, you do not merely complete tasks, you shape the very direction of your life. In the next and final part, we will see how self-discipline becomes the anchor that holds focus in place, ensuring that your best intentions turn into consistent actions. Part 7: The importance of self-discipline. If focus is the magnifying glass that directs your energy, then self-discipline is the steady hand that keeps that glass in place. Without discipline, even the sharpest focus will drift. And without it, the best plans remain only dreams. The book Focus on What Matters begins this final section with a vivid truth: discipline is doing what needs to be done, even when you do not feel like doing it. Motivation can start a journey, but discipline is what carries you to the destination. Take the story of Kavya, a marathon runner from Bengaluru. When she began training, she was full of enthusiasm. She bought new shoes, read about running techniques, and even posted about her goal on social media. But as the weeks passed, her excitement faded. Rainy mornings, muscle soreness, and long workdays tempted her to skip training. What made her finish the race was not motivation, it was discipline. Every morning, she tied her shoes and ran, regardless of weather or mood. She had made a promise to herself, and she kept it. The author explains that discipline is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. However, just like a muscle, it can also tire if overworked. That is why the book advises starting small and building steadily. Instead of trying to overhaul your entire life in a week, pick one habit and master it. Once it becomes part of your routine, add another. History offers powerful examples of discipline in action. Consider Benjamin Franklin. He created a personal system of 13 virtues, from temperance to humility, and tracked his progress daily. He knew that excellence was not a single act, but a series of consistent, repeated behaviors. That steady commitment built not only his career, but his character. The book gives a simple formula for building discipline: clarity, commitment, and consequence. First, you must be clear about what you want and why you want it. A vague goal like "I want to be healthier" is not enough. Instead, "I will exercise for 30 minutes every day to improve my energy and avoid illness" gives a clear direction. Second, you must commit fully, treating the goal as non-negotiable. Third, set consequences, both positive and negative, so your mind learns that actions have results. A key point the author makes is that discipline frees you more than it restricts you. At first, the rules feel like a cage. But soon, you realize they are actually the scaffolding that allows you to build a stronger life. For example, a disciplined writer who writes one page every day may seem less free than one who writes only when inspired. But at the end of the year, the disciplined writer has a finished book. The free writer has scattered notes and a feeling of frustration. To bring this point home, the author shares the story of a Japanese pottery master. For 50 years, he arrived at his workshop at the same time every morning and shaped clay until evening. His students once asked if he ever felt bored. He smiled and said, "Discipline removes boredom, because in repetition I discover depth." His mastery came not from occasional bursts of inspiration, but from decades of steady, deliberate practice. The book also addresses a common myth that discipline means never enjoying yourself. In truth, discipline is about choosing your pleasures wisely. It is the difference between eating a dessert because you truly want it versus eating out of habit. It is the choice to rest after you have earned it, not to avoid the work altogether. One exercise the author suggests is the discipline journal. At the end of each day, you write down one thing you did with discipline, even if it was small, like making your bed, finishing a task before the deadline, or keeping your word to a friend. Over time, these entries become proof of your ability to follow through. On difficult days, you can read them and remember that you are capable of more than you think. Self-discipline also protects you from giving in to temporary emotions. There will be mornings when you feel tired, evenings when you feel lazy, and moments when excuses seem reasonable. Discipline is the quiet voice that says, "Do it anyway." It is the bridge between goals and achievements, between intentions and results. The chapter ends with a powerful reminder: in the end, success is less about talent and more about consistency. Many people start strong, but only those who keep going reach the finish line. Self-discipline is what keeps you moving, step after step, even when the path feels steep. And with this, the book closes its core lessons. You have learned the value of letting go, the art of decision-making, the beauty of simplicity, the tools to manage stress, the strength of focus, and now, the anchor of discipline. Together, they form a map, but walking the path is up to you. You have just listened to Focus on What Matters, a book that is not only about productivity, but about living with purpose. We began with the wisdom of the Stoics, learning to anchor ourselves in what we can control. We explored the art of letting go, freeing our minds from what no longer serves us. We saw the power of clear decision-making, the peace that comes from simplicity, the tools to manage stress, the exponential results of true focus, and the steady strength of self-discipline. Each chapter has given you ideas, but ideas alone are not enough. Change happens when you act. The question now is, what will you choose to focus on? What will you let go of, starting today? If you take just one principle from this book and live it every day, you will already be moving closer to the life you want. Thank you for listening to Books Arena. If you enjoyed this audiobook, subscribe for more life-changing summaries and full narrations. Until next time, remember, you cannot do everything, but you can do what matters, and that is enough. Welcome to Books Arena. Today, I want to share a life-changing truth with you: the fact that most of us are running faster, working harder, and yet feeling more stretched and scattered than ever before. We live in a world that celebrates more. More tasks, more goals, more commitments, more everything. From the moment we wake up, the world pulls us in 100 different directions: emails to answer, messages to respond to, projects to finish, errands to run. And somewhere along the way, we start believing that being busy is the same as being productive. But deep inside, we know it is not. Greg McKeown, the author of Essentialism, calls this the disease of non-essentialism. It is the belief that we can do everything, have everything, and say yes to everything. The result? We burn out, lose focus, and our most important goals get buried under the noise. Essentialism is the cure. It is not about doing more things, it is about doing the right things. It is about asking, what is essential, and having the courage to eliminate everything else. It is not time management, it is priority management. Think about it: when you focus your energy on just a few truly important things, you make greater progress than when you try to spread yourself thin over dozens of meaningless ones. A laser can cut through steel because its energy is concentrated. The same is true for you. This journey is about learning to stop saying yes to everything and start saying yes only to what truly matters. It is about reclaiming your time, your energy, and your life. So let us begin and discover how to live not by default, but by design. Part 1, The Essence: Less but Better. Imagine standing in a room filled with doors. Each door leads to an opportunity, an idea, a demand for your attention. Some of these doors lead to things that could change your life. Others lead to distractions that will steal your time and energy. But here is the problem: if you try to walk through every door, you will end up exhausted, lost, and making very little progress in any direction. This is the trap most people fall into. They believe that success comes from doing more projects, more commitments, more responsibilities. But in reality, success often comes from doing less, but doing it better. This is the essence of essentialism. Greg McKeown uses a simple image to explain this. Imagine drawing a small circle. Now draw arrows coming out from it in every direction. If you spread those arrows evenly, they go out only a short distance. But if you take all the energy and put it into one arrow, it goes far. That is what happens when you focus your time and effort on the most important thing instead of scattering it across the trivial many. Think of Steve Jobs returning to Apple in 1997. The company was producing dozens of products, many of which were failing. Jobs cut their product line down to just a handful of items: computers and devices he believed were truly great. By focusing on less, Apple created revolutionary products like the iMac, iPod, and eventually the iPhone. His philosophy was clear: deciding what not to do is as important as deciding what to do. Essentialism begins with a mindset shift. Instead of asking, how can I fit this in, you ask, is this the most important thing I could be doing? The non-essentialist tries to do everything, believing that saying yes makes them valuable. The essentialist chooses carefully, believing that saying no makes them focused and effective. One powerful truth here is that saying yes to one thing always means saying no to something else. Time is a finite resource. Every hour you spend on something unimportant is an hour stolen from what truly matters. If you say yes to endless meetings, you might be saying no to time with your family, to rest, to deep creative work. Essentialists understand this trade-off and make choices deliberately. Let me give you a real-world example. Warren Buffett, one of the most successful investors in history, attributes much of his success to focus. He once said, "The difference between successful people and really successful people is that really successful people say no to almost everything." Buffett spends most of his time reading, thinking, and focusing on a small number of investments he deeply understands. He does not chase every opportunity that comes his way. He chooses only the ones that align with his core strategy. Living as an essentialist also means you stop measuring life by how busy you are. Being constantly busy is not a badge of honor, it is often a sign of poor prioritization. Essentialists do not fill their schedules to prove their worth, they clear their schedules to make space for what truly matters. There is also an inner peace that comes with essentialism. When you stop trying to be everything to everyone, you release the constant pressure to keep up with the endless demands around you. You stop feeling guilty for not doing it all, because you know that doing less is actually the smarter, more impactful choice. At its core, essentialism is not about getting more done in less time. It is about getting the right things done. It is about creating a life where every action you take moves you toward your highest priorities. The journey of essentialism begins with one simple but powerful question: what is essential? In the coming parts, we will explore how to answer that question and how to eliminate everything else that is standing in your way. Because once you understand the essence of essentialism, you stop living a life by default pulled by other people's agendas and you start living a life by design, directed by what truly matters to you. Part 2, Choose the Power of Choice. One of the most liberating truths in life is this: you always have a choice. It may not feel that way. Many people believe they are trapped by obligations, by work demands, family expectations, financial pressures, or social responsibilities. They tell themselves, I have to do this. I have no choice. But essentialism begins with rejecting that belief. You always have a choice. You may not control every circumstance, but you control your response. Greg McKeown emphasizes that choice is not just something we exercise occasionally, it is a skill, a muscle, and a responsibility. In fact, one of the most powerful ways to reclaim your life is to recognize that if you don't make conscious choices about where your time and energy go, someone else will. And that someone could be your boss, your friends, society, or even the endless pull of distractions. Let's consider an example. Rosa Parks, in 1955, made a choice that changed history. When she refused to give up her seat on a bus in Montgomery, Alabama, she wasn't just reacting, she was making a deliberate decision based on her values and what she believed was right. That single choice sparked the Montgomery bus boycott and became a turning point in the civil rights movement. One choice can shift the course of a life or even the world. In everyday life, we often give away our power to choose without even realizing it. We agree to meetings that drain us. We say yes to social events we don't actually want to attend. We take on projects that do not align with our goals because we are afraid to say no. But every time we do this, we surrender control of our own lives. Essentialists take ownership of their choices. They understand that choice is not just the privilege of the powerful, it is the birthright of every individual. Even when circumstances are tough, you can choose your priorities, your boundaries, and your focus. Greg McKeown uses a key insight here: if you don't prioritize your life, someone else will. That is why essentialists pause before saying yes. They ask, does this align with my purpose? Does this bring me closer to what truly matters? If the answer is no, they are willing to let it go without guilt. Choice also requires courage. It is easy to say yes to everything because it keeps you liked and avoids conflict. But it takes courage to say no when everyone expects you to agree. It takes courage to choose a different path when the world is telling you to follow the crowd. Think about Steve Jobs again. He once said, I'm as proud of what we don't do as I am of what we do. Choosing not to pursue certain ideas allowed Apple to focus on fewer, more impactful products. The power wasn't in doing more, it was in choosing less, but better. There's another aspect to choice: the ability to re-choose. Life changes, priorities shift, and what was essential yesterday may not be essential today. Essentialists are willing to reassess and adjust their choices rather than stick with something simply because it's familiar. When you embrace choice, you stop being a passive participant in life and start being its active architect. You no longer drift from one obligation to another. You decide. You design. You choose. And when you choose deliberately, you create space for the things that bring real meaning and value to your life. In the next part, we will discern how essentialists filter out the noise and identify what truly matters. This is where the skill of choice transforms into the art of clarity. Part 3, Discern seeing what really matters. In a world overflowing with opportunities, ideas, and demands, the hardest part is not choosing between good and bad, it is choosing between good and great. Essentialists are masters at this. They know how to sift through the noise and focus on the few things that make the highest contribution to their goals and purpose. Greg McKeown explains that most people struggle not because they lack effort, but because they scatter their effort across too many areas. Imagine trying to dig 10 small holes to find water. You will never go deep enough in any of them to reach it. But if you dig one hole with focused effort, you will find the water much sooner. This is where discernment comes in. It is the skill of being able to tell the difference between something that is merely good and something that is truly essential. Let's consider Warren Buffett. He once said that the key to his success was not in saying yes often, but in saying no to almost everything. Buffett advises making a list of your top 25 goals, then focusing only on the top 5. The other 20? Treat them as distractions no matter how appealing they seem. That is discernment in action. But how do you build this skill? One powerful way is by asking yourself better questions. If I could do only one thing today that would make the highest impact, what would it be? Will this matter in 5 years? Is this the very best use of my time and resources right now? Essentialists live by the principle that if it is not a clear yes, it is a clear no. If you hesitate, if you feel uncertainty, or if you sense that something is just nice to do but not critical, they let it go. Discernment also involves stepping back from the rush of life to see the bigger picture. Many people get trapped in what McKeown calls reactive mode, where they respond to whatever is loudest or most urgent in the moment. The problem is that urgency often masquerades as importance. Just because something demands your attention now does not mean it deserves it. Think of a lighthouse. Its light cuts through the darkness, guiding ships toward safety. Discernment works in the same way. It gives you a fixed point of reference so you do not get lost in the storm of distractions. A real-life example of discernment can be seen in the career of Michael Jordan. He was not just talented, he was deliberate about focusing on the skills and practices that made the biggest difference in his performance. While others experimented with various activities, Jordan honed the fundamentals relentlessly. He did not try to master everything, he mastered the essentials. There is also a trap here, the trap of almost essential. These are activities or commitments that seem valuable but actually dilute your energy. They feel important because they align with your values in some way, but they are not the most impactful. For example, you may think attending every single industry event will help you grow your career, but perhaps only 1 or 2 high-quality events per year truly make a difference. Discernment requires both logic and intuition. Logic helps you weigh options against clear criteria. Intuition helps you sense when something aligns with your deeper purpose. Essentialists listen to both. Ultimately, discernment is about protecting your most valuable resources, your time, energy, and attention, from being consumed by the trivial many. It is about giving yourself permission to ignore almost everything so you can give your best to the most important things. In the next part, we will explore trade-off, why saying yes to one thing means saying no to something else, and how essentialists embrace this reality instead of fearing it. Part 4, Trade-off, choosing what to go big on. Life is full of choices, and every choice comes with a cost. When we say yes to one thing, we are automatically saying no to something else. Yet, many people live as though they can have it all, every opportunity, every project, every event. The truth is, trying to do it all guarantees that nothing gets your best. Essentialists understand a simple but powerful truth: you cannot have it all, but you can choose to excel in what truly matters. They do not shy away from trade-offs, they embrace them. They see trade-offs not as losses, but as conscious investments. Think about it this way: imagine you have a bucket of water and multiple plants to water. If you pour a little water on each plant, none will thrive. But if you choose 1 or 2 plants and give them all your water, they will grow strong and healthy. Trade-offs are about making that choice deliberately. A perfect example of this comes from Steve Jobs. When he returned to Apple in 1997, the company had dozens of products and was struggling. Jobs famously cut down the product line by 70%, focusing only on the few that had the highest potential. By eliminating the non-essentials, Apple was able to pour all its resources into innovations like the iMac, iPod, and later the iPhone, products that changed the world. Jobs understood that saying yes to the right thing meant saying no to many good things. The problem for most of us is that we avoid trade-offs because we fear missing out. This fear, often called FOMO, keeps us stuck in a cycle of overcommitment. But the irony is, when you try to avoid missing out on anything, you end up missing out on the deep rewards of focusing on the few things that matter most. Trade-offs also apply to personal life. Suppose you decide to work late every night to advance your career. You might gain professional success, but you are trading away time with your family, rest, and health. Essentialism does not tell you what to choose, it tells you to choose consciously, knowing the cost. If you decide that your top priority right now is building a business, then accept that you may have less time for other things. If you decide family comes first, accept that some career opportunities will pass by. There is a certain peace that comes with accepting trade-offs. It frees you from the exhausting illusion that you can be everywhere and do everything. Instead, you start to channel your energy into fewer but better efforts. One way to think about trade-offs is to use what McKeown calls the big yes test. Ask yourself, what is my big yes right now? Once you know, it becomes much easier to say no to other things, not because they are unworthy, but because they are not the big yes. Jeff Bezos once said that Amazon's success comes from making a small number of high-quality decisions each year. That is an essentialist mindset. It is not about doing more, it is about doing the right things and doing them exceptionally well. Trade-offs are inevitable. The only question is whether you make them deliberately or let them happen by default. When you choose by default, you end up reacting to other people's priorities instead of living by your own. But when you choose deliberately, you are taking control of your life. In the next part, we will eliminate how essentialists clear away the clutter to make space for what really matters. Part 5, eliminate cutting out the trivial many. If prioritizing means choosing the vital few, then eliminating means courageously removing the trivial many. Most of us agree in theory that we should focus on what matters. But in reality, our days are filled with meetings we did not need to attend, tasks that do not move us forward, and commitments we made because we did not want to offend anyone. Essentialists take a different approach. They treat their time and energy as a precious currency. Just as you would not throw away money on something you do not need, you do not spend time on things that are not aligned with your purpose. They do not simply manage their schedule, they defend it. Greg McKeown calls this the art of the graceful no. Many people hear the word no and think of it as negative or even rude. But saying no is not about rejecting people, it is about protecting the things you have already chosen to say yes to. The key is to decline without burning bridges. For example, instead of a blunt no, I cannot help, you might say, I would love to, but I am focusing my energy on a project that requires my full attention right now. This communicates respect while holding your boundary. Think of a sculptor with a block of marble. Every chip he removes brings the hidden statue closer to life. The marble he discards is not bad, it simply does not belong to the final vision. Your life works the same way. The tasks you remove are not necessarily wrong or meaningless, they are just not part of your highest contribution. Steve Jobs, again, was a master of elimination. After returning to Apple, he did not just focus on a few products, he killed dozens of good but distracting projects. I am just as proud of what we do not do as I am of what we do, he said. That single sentence captures the heart of essentialism. The challenge is that elimination requires courage. It is easy to keep saying yes, to keep adding things to your to-do list. Saying no means risking disappointment or criticism from others. But here is the paradox, the more you say yes to the wrong things, the more you let people down in the long run because you cannot deliver your best. Essentialists also use elimination proactively, not reactively. Instead of waiting for their schedule to become overloaded, they regularly review their commitments and cut away anything that no longer serves their purpose. It is like pruning a plant so it can grow stronger. Without pruning, growth becomes wild, tangled, and weak. A practical way to start is to do a life audit. Look at every task, meeting, subscription, and habit you currently maintain. Ask yourself, does this help me achieve my big yes? If the answer is no, or even a hesitant maybe, consider letting it go. Remember, if it is not a clear yes, it is a no. Another powerful tool is creating buffers. Leave room in your schedule instead of cramming every moment with activity. That extra space acts as a cushion for the unexpected, and it prevents you from slipping back into a reactive, overcommitted life. Eliminating the trivial many is not about doing less just for the sake of less. It is about creating space, physical, mental, and emotional, so that you can give your best to what matters most. In the next part, we will move into execute how to make doing the right things almost effortless. Part 6, execute making it almost effortless. Once you have clarified what is essential and eliminated what is not, the next challenge is execution, turning intention into consistent action. The essentialist approach to execution is not about pushing yourself harder or filling every second with productivity. Instead, it is about creating systems and habits that make doing the right things the path of least resistance. Greg McKeown explains that human willpower is like a battery, it drains with use. If every day you rely on sheer will to stick to your priorities, you will inevitably burn out or give in to distractions. The solution is to design your environment so that the essential happens automatically. Think of Michael Phelps, the Olympic swimmer. Before his biggest races, he followed the exact same routine, same warm-up, same stretches, same sequence of mental images. By the time he hit the water, his mind and body were in peak condition without having to think about it. That is the power of habit. It removes decision-making fatigue and frees your energy for performance. Execution begins with preparation. Essentialists remove friction from the start. For example, if your goal is to write every morning, set up your workspace the night before. Place your notebook or laptop where you can see it. Prepare your coffee. Close the apps that might distract you. When you wake up, the only thing left to do is begin. Another key principle is to focus on the smallest next step. Instead of thinking about the massive project in front of you, ask, what is the very next action I can take to move this forward? This breaks big goals into manageable pieces and prevents paralysis by analysis. Essentialists also protect their peak energy hours. Each of us has a time of day when our brain is sharpest. For some, it is early morning, for others, late at night. Schedule your most important work for those hours, and use lower energy times for less critical tasks. This way, you are not fighting against your natural rhythm. Importantly, execution is not about speed, it is about consistency. A slow but steady march towards your goal will outlast a sprint followed by burnout. Think of the tortoise in the classic fable. He wins not because he is faster, but because he keeps moving without stopping. One more secret of effortless execution is the power of routines. A routine is not a prison, it is a framework that frees your mind from constantly deciding what to do next. When you have established rhythms for your priorities, you can focus on deep work without wasting mental energy on logistics. And yet, execution also requires flexibility. Life will throw surprises at you: a sudden emergency, a new opportunity, a personal crisis. The essentialist mindset helps you adapt without losing sight of your big yes. You adjust the plan, but you do not abandon your core priorities. Finally, essentialists celebrate small wins. Each step forward is progress, and progress fuels motivation. Waiting for one big victory can leave you discouraged, noticing the daily victories keeps you energized. By making the essential easy to do and the non-essential harder to do, execution becomes less about willpower and more about design. You are not forcing yourself to succeed, you are building a path where success is the natural outcome. In the next and final part, we will expand how living as an essentialist opens the door to greater impact and meaning. Part 7, expand creating space for what truly matters. When you live as an essentialist, something remarkable begins to happen. Your life starts to expand, not in the sense of being busier or more filled, but in the richness and depth of experience. You are no longer scattering your time and energy across countless small, unimportant tasks. Instead, you are channeling them into fewer, more meaningful endeavors that grow and flourish. Expansion here does not mean doing more things. It means making a bigger impact with fewer actions. Greg McKeown reminds us that progress in life is not about how much you do, but about whether what you do matters. This is the paradox: by focusing on less, you can actually contribute more. Think about how a magnifying glass can set paper on fire. The sunlight is always there, but scattered, it warms without burning. When you focus it into a single point, it becomes powerful enough to ignite. Essentialism is that magnifying glass for your life. Living with focus creates space for creativity to thrive. When your mind is not cluttered with dozens of half-finished commitments, you have the bandwidth to think deeply, to notice patterns others miss, to develop insights that require quiet reflection. This is why the most innovative thinkers often guard their time fiercely. They know that clarity and inspiration require room to breathe. Expansion also comes in the form of relationships. When you stop rushing from one obligation to another, you can be truly present with people. A deep, meaningful conversation with a friend becomes more valuable than a dozen shallow exchanges. You start to listen fully, without the itch to check your phone or hurry to the next task. This presence strengthens bonds and creates trust, something far more lasting than any quick networking opportunity. In an essentialist life, rest is not an afterthought, it is a foundation. Just as muscles need recovery after exercise, your mind and spirit need time to recharge. Rest gives you perspective. It keeps you from being reactive and allows you to act with intention. And in that rested state, you can take on challenges with clarity and confidence. The impact of essentialism ripples outward. As people see you living with focus, they begin to respect your boundaries. Some may even be inspired to do the same in their own lives. Your example can create a cultural shift in your family, workplace, or community, a reminder that life is not a race to see who can fill their calendar the most, but a journey to find and fulfill what truly matters. Most importantly, living as an essentialist allows you to look back on your days with satisfaction rather than regret. You know that your energy was not wasted on trivial pursuits, but invested in things that mattered. You lived deliberately. You made your mark. Expansion is not about stretching yourself thin, it is about stretching into your full potential. When you pursue less but better, you not only accomplish more, you also create a life of purpose, peace, and fulfillment. And that is the heart of essentialism, not to do more, but to do what matters most, and to give it your best. Essentialism is more than a productivity method, it is a philosophy of living with clarity, focus, and intention. In a world where distractions are endless and demands seem to multiply by the hour, the essentialist chooses a different path, the disciplined pursuit of less, but better. By pausing to ask what truly matters, by eliminating the trivial, and by making deliberate choices, you reclaim control over your time, your energy, and your attention. You stop scattering yourself across dozens of meaningless tasks and instead channel your best efforts into the few things that create the greatest value in your life. Living as an essentialist is not always easy. It requires saying no when it is uncomfortable, creating boundaries others may not understand, and trusting that doing less can actually lead to more impact. But the reward is profound, a life that feels lighter, clearer, and deeply satisfying. So as you move forward, remember this: your time is your most precious resource. Spend it on what truly matters. Cut out the noise. Focus on the essential. And watch as your life expands in meaning, contribution, and joy. That is the true art of living by design, not by default.